even though I'm playing.
Hello and welcome back to Quarantine Theater Company. Tonight we're doing a script that was never made. It was originally to be Jurassic Park 4 before the whatever, the new ones with Chris Pratt. Yeah, that one. Anyway, so this is Jurassic Park 4. We've got a great cast going with us tonight. For scene description, we've got Kate with us. Woo! Kevin is going to be our like Isabel and Machine Gunner. There's a lot of people here and not a ton of parts, so I apologize if some people aren't on for as much. George is going to be our Nick tonight. Logan is going to be our John Hammond. We've got Travis, cat hair in my mouth. Travis joining us as Croner. It's going to be, I believe, a bad guy. I'm just going to be some random people. Sherman, one of them. We've got Curtis with us. He's going to be our big bad, Baron the Von Drax, which I think is a wonderful villain name. We've got Eric joining us, and he's going to be Zeiss. And Chelsea's going to be joining us as Adrian Joyce. And we've got Nicole. Yay, last but not least, Nicole's going to be our Maya this evening. So without further ado, I think I got everybody. Did I miss anyone? Did I get everyone? Cool. Let's do it.
Jurassic Park 4. Exterior Little League Field aerial shot day. We drift over a scene of Saturday afternoon Americana, a Little League baseball game and cookout at the town field of a peaceful suburban community. Ground level picnic area. A dad in a grease-splattered apron flips steals burgers, hot dogs on the grill with a long-handled fork. Parking lot, yappy dog. We have a yappy dog. It's so cute. A little yappy dog scoots around the barking with the apoplectic furry at the end of its leash, secured to gardening stake whacked into the ground at the edge of the parking lot. Bleachers. Parents cheer their children on.
Come on, Joshua, rip the covers off the ball.
Buckle down, fellas. On your toes out there.
Joshua's mother sits with little Rebecca, no more than 2 or 3 years old, standing on the bleacher seats beside her, and her bespectacled son, Benjamin, immersed in a Harry Potter book on the other side. Hashtag not sponsored. Behind her is a video enthusiast parent recording everything with a high-end video camera.
Come on, honey, lay into it. Benjamin, stop reading. Your brother's up.
I'm aware of that, Mother.
We pan to the left field just as Joshua swings and hits a grounder between first and second.
Run! Run! Run!
Right field. The ball continues into right field where little Timmy, not major league material, lets it roll between his legs, turns and kicks a few times before finally picking it up and launching an anemic throw towards the infield to the chorus of
Throw it!
Throw the ball!
Throw the ball!
Throw it!
infield. The ball is retrieved by the first baseman, who hurls it to the shortstop covering second, but Josh was already standing happily at the top of the bag. The pitcher is furious, yelling out to Timmy.
All you gotta do is pick it up and throw it! You're such a spaz!
Hey, none of that.
We pan to see the coach standing in front of the bench and the team in the field.
I'll handle the coaching here.
We have to have him out there.
Just get back on the mound, mister.
Oh boy. Having Travis as a coach is scary. The pitcher kicks the dirt and returns on the mound as the coach turns angrily to Timmy.
Keep your head down on those grounders and throw ahead of the runner. You're out there picking daisies.
$20 says he doesn't know what that means. Bleachers. Timmy's father puts his head in his hands, humiliated. Good luck with that, Joshua's mom.
He got a double.
He got doable.
Maybe they meant for it to be accentuated.
Single and an error.
The kid in right couldn't get you cold and flu season.
Come on, Eli. Bring him. Ew.
Right field. Timmy dejectedly walks back to his position. A large shadow sweeps over him. Parking lot, Yappy Dog. Yappy Dog is yapping, then senses something above and freezes. Looking up, he starts to whimper. Bleachers, little Rebecca's looking into the sky, fascinated.
Good eyes, Eli. Way to look.
Mommy birdie.
This is your pitch now. Get some aluminum on it.
Birdie, mommy birdie.
That's nice, honey.
We know where this is going. Field, the pitch, clink. Eli lifts a very high pop-up into, oh no, right field. In the bleachers.
Get under it, son. You got it, Timmy.
Drop it. Drop it. Drop it.
Right field. Timmy unsteadily wobbles under the pop-up. Everyone on and off the field shouting instructions at him. In the sky, a baseball. The baseball keeps rising. Rising, whoosh. A huge black dinosaur bird swoops out of the heights and snatches the ball in the razor-toothed bill, then wings away with a powerful stroke. Timmy, frozen in amazement, gloves still ready for the ball that won't be coming down for him to drop. Bleachers. The spectators are stunned, speechless, gaping up at the sky, and little Rebecca giggles. Picnic area. The barbecuing dad stands frozen with a half-done steak suspended on his fork, trying to make sense of what he just saw.
What the?
Another bird swoops from behind and snatches the steak of his fork.
Hey!
Bleachers. We shoot from behind the bleachers towards the field and the sky above it. A black shape takes form, winging in over the fence in center field. Reverse. The spectators are standing up, concerned.
Look! Up in the sky! It's
some sort of pterosaur, Mother.
It's coming at us!
Thought it might be Superman for a minute. Joshua's mother grabs little Rebecca and ducks with all the spectators, and the pterosaur buzzes through the bleachers, squawking it with menace. Only the video enthusiast and Benjamin remain standing.
There's a whole flock of them, though flock might not be the right word.
I can think of another one that starts with F. Joshua's mother grabs his arm and yanks him down, turns screaming to the field.
Joshua, run! Run!
Field. It's like they fight over the infield. A half dozen dino birds wheeling and swooping, squawking hellaciously. The little leaguers scramble in all directions. Joshua begins to run down the base path towards third, and the bird flapping after him as he rounds third. The beast makes a lunge, narrowly missing the boy with its talons. Joshua sprints towards home plate and his mother in the bleachers beyond, the bird wheeling and pursuing. Joshua's mother standing with her daughter in arms now, screaming out.
Run, Joshua, run! Slide!
I hope he gets to score for this. This is a lot of work for a kid. Joshua, just as the bird makes another snatch for him, he slides under its grasp and across home plate. The bird streaks past, bustling partially through the nylon mesh of the backstop, squabbling and struggling as it becomes entangled. Parking lot aerial shot. We swoop down from above at the no longer yapping dog. The dog whimpers, takes a hard run, thunk, and pulls the steak clear out of the ground, scampering away with it, trailing him till whack. The swooping bird scoops it up and swallows it, flapping away with the leash and steak dangling from its bill. Picnic area. Family members running every which way as they're dive bombed by the birds. It crouches on a blanket to the ground, wolfing down the abandoned picnic food. Barbecue Dad fends one flying menace off with his long fork, then dives under a picnic table for refuge. Field. General panic on the field. The pitcher has been standing petrified on the mound throughout, too scared to run or even lie down. His father's starting out to him from the sidelines, much impeded by the swooping, squawking dino birds.
Just stay right there, Alex. I'm coming for you.
But the bird does a stuka dive over the backstop and flop grabs the boy by the shoulders, lifting him away.
No!
The flying beast flaps hard, trying to get some altitude, lugging the pitcher only a few feet off the ground as it heads straight towards Timmy in right field. Timmy's father's running out towards him, aluminum baseball bat in hand.
Grab him, Timmy! Grab him!
Timmy. Timmy pulls his glove off, estimates, then jumps just as the dino bird is starting to lift off, grabbing the pitcher's legs with both arms. The extra weight pulls the beast down close enough to the ground that whap, whap, whap. Timmy's father can start whomping it with the bat. The bird lets the pitcher go, and he and Timmy tumble to the ground, then flaps away, croaking a distress call. The pitcher's father and Timmy's father help the boys up.
Nice grab, son. Way to use your head.
The video enthusiast steps past them, pointing his camera to the sky.
Ooh, I think they're leaving.
We pan to see what he's taping. Yup. Bunch of them winging away together. Infield, we track through freaked out little leaguers and their freaked out parents, trying to comfort them till we reach home plate where Joshua's mother is on her knees, hugging Joshua as little Rebecca and Benjamin stand by.
Joshua, that was wonderful. You were so brave.
He didn't touch third.
She gives her bookworm son a withering look.
This is the last baseball game I take you to, young man.
Promise?
Backstop. The thoroughly enmeshed dino bird caught in the backstop netting screams in frustration. Interior beach bar day. Close up on the television screen, we start on a TV news image of the struggling dino wrapped in a cutaway backstop of netting and with a plastic restraint holding its bill shut, being carefully carried past the shell-shocked little leaguers and parents by a pair of black uniformed SWAT team members.
The attack, the first occurring within U.S. territory, left several people badly shaken, but resulted in no serious injuries.
We switched to handheld home video footage shot by the enthusiasts at the game, swooping dino birds, screaming humans.
Similar incidents have plagued communities in Central America and Mexico in recent months, leading to the formation of a United Nations task force to exterminate the intrusive pterosaurs.
We switched to more professional footage and of a pair of other ones floating in a natural raft. That one on a natural raft of coconut shells and other debris on the ocean.
These and a few other formerly extinct species have migrated to the mainland.
TV image, an aerial shot of Isla Nublar.
From Isla Nublar, site of the notorious Jurassic Park disaster.
TV image, a dusty street in a Central American town. A flock of scrawny chickens run underfoot in a panic. Pedestrians jump onto cars as a small band of those guys dart around. Thank you. Dart around after the chickens. A big hen goes down, feathers flying as the compies dive into it.
Causing untold damage to crops and livestock. Wilhelm Spieler,
a business-suited corporate flag catcher, Spieler, appears on screen standing before a large corporate logo.
Spokesman for the Grendel Corporation, the Swiss firm now responsible for the island, had this to say.
Slightly Swiss accent. Our eradication of the genetically engineered creatures at the former Jurassic Park is nearly complete. We believe that these current depredations...
Reverse, Nick. Nick, somebody, a currently unemployed soldier of fortune, watches the TV skeptically as he stands on the counter of a beachfront bar.
It can be attributed to animals that escaped the island before we and Grendel took possession of it.
Harris pushes aside his empty whiskey glass and steps away.
Right, buddy.
We can only regret that we were not given the opportunity to respond to this situation earlier.
Exterior beachfront bar, boardwalk day. Harris squints as the sun hits him. He's has day-old stubble on his face and the air of a man who's unhappily killing time. We track with him as he moves down the boardwalk past various beach types. A shadow drifts over him. He looks up, point of view sky. Swooping low overhead are three pelicans, similar outline but without the size and the teeth.
Nick?
Boardwalk. Jeb Overton, wearing a quasi-military uniform, approaches Nick with a halting gait.
It's you, right?
Nick looks him over and smiles slightly.
Captain Overton.
I look mere like Captain Crunch in this outfit. I haven't seen you since.
He doesn't finish the sentence. The place they last saw each other is not one either wishes to reminisce about.
Yeah,
Have you heard from any of the guys?
haven't been in the loop for a while.
Wilkins drove his car off a cliff. DeStefano, well, peacetime is rough for a lot of people.
How about you?
Oh, I'm a bionic security guard.
He hitches up his pants slightly to reveal his ankle chromium prosthetics. Both legs are artificial below the knees.
State of the art. I'm in charge of the lockup over at the aviary.
He indicates the large hummingbird patch on the breast pocket of his uniform.
This, like, giant zoo for birds.
I always said you were for the birds.
Listen, are you still consulting?
Haven't had a contract in 3 years.
But if there was one, good money, a little travel, a little adventure,
You've been looking for me.
more or less.
Harris looks out over the beach, lots of people having fun.
It's not exactly a stepping stone to bigger and better things, what we do, is it?
He sighs, resigned.
Who's it for?
Well, he's kind of strange.
Exterior aviary, day. Emu. An emu faces us in threat posture, the big flightless bird making a deep thumping noise as it vibrates its massive chest.
They can get rather territorial in captivity.
Reverse, Nick and John Hammond stroll down the pathway through a section of high grass in the aviary. High above them is a domed ceiling of net. All around are outcroppings of foliage and busy birds. A sturdy nurse follows them several yards behind.
Of course, it doesn't put me in the best of moods either.
You're not in captivity.
He takes a quick look back at the nurse with a
You just
smiley
can't
face
see
in
the
there.
chains. My late heir managed to get me declared incompetent. My binders are bribed to spy upon me for my enemies.
You have enemies.
You know, I'm the most sued person in the history of the world. It's in the Guinness Book. You could look it up. Prominent law schools devote entire semesters to my malfeasances. Regulatory statutes bear my name, not the legacy I had in mind when I started out, but a legacy nonetheless.
He's not wrong. It is a legacy. They pass some beautiful roseate spoonbills wading through a shallow pond.
We look back at our lives and we try to tally up the things we are proud of against the regrets. Do you have regrets, Mr. Harris?
More than a few.
At the moment, my greatest regrets, other than having spawned the careers of thousands of taught lawyers, is having put an evil into the world that may become permanent. And evil must be eliminated before it spirals out of control.
Dinosaurs.
Yes, my dinosaurs. How much do you know about them?
Most of them have been wiped out. A couple species have been making a nuisance of themselves.
Whenever a new organism, especially a predator with no natural enemies, is introduced into an ecosystem, the result is disastrous.
Pest control isn't in my line.
I'm not proposing you run about with a butterfly net, Mr. Harris. The most effective weapon against any species is its own behavior, particularly its reproductive behavior. Take a population of any wild animal and introduce a number of highly aggressive but reproductively neutered individuals within it, a Judas strain, so to speak.
Cuts down on the birth rate.
Who better to locate our errant creatures than their almost identical kin?
Why not give them diseases too?
Viruses mutate faster than lawsuits, I'm afraid. Too much risk they'd begin to infect other species. But a large influx of young, aggressive, sterile, but sexually aggressive females.
Sounds like a college boy's dream.
And the only solution, I believe, to our present crisis.
Sounds good to me.
But not to the United Nations. They've laughed off my proposals, outlawed not only the creation of any new dinosaurs, sterile or not, but also prohibited the worldwide mining, sale, or possession of amber.
No little mosquitoes trapped in tree sap.
Which means no basic genetic material to work with.
But even if you had these genes, you couldn't.
Among the people on the board of this aviary, funded through a trust I set up before my legal difficulties began, are some of the finest genetic scientists in the world. People who would be happy to risk implementing my plan if source of the vital DNA could be located.
Something tells me you found one.
I didn't find it, I left it behind. A former employee of mine, a Mr. Nedry.
Interior Jurassic Park laboratory flashback. We see Nedry opening a safety vault disguised as an aerosol can and sticking pilfered tubes of dinosaur embryo into it.
At the behest of one of my more unscrupulous competitors, conspired to steal a large quantity of genetic material, enough of each gender for at least 40 species from our laboratory at the park. It was his misfortune, however.
Exterior road, Isla Nublar, rainy night, flashback. Nedry's vehicle slides out of control in the torrential downpour, leaving the road and coming to rest, stuck in the muck.
To attempt his clandestine transaction during a period of severe technical malfunction at the facility.
Exterior jungle night, flashback. Nedry faces off with a large, curious Chlamydosaurus butori, spitting frilled lizard or spitter. Its frills pop up and it hawks a throatful of nasty black stuff into Nedry's face.
We were forced to abandon the island before his exact fate.
Nedry runs back into the vehicle, but the spitter leaps after him, thrashing blood.
Or that of the material he had stolen could be determined.
We pan to the abandoned aerosol can, swept away by a rivulet of rainwater and quickly covered with muck. Exterior aviary day, present. Songbirds flit about the branches all around them as they approach the rustic-built snack bar. Snacks!
But the people who took over the island.
Grendel International. If they had found it, they wouldn't be constantly pressuring me to reveal its whereabouts. I have good reason to believe they might be the people who engaged Nedry in his betrayal.
Why would they want dinosaur genes?
I shudder to think.
Hammond looks over the menu hanging above the snack bar counter. Snacks!
Major Overton tells me you're an expert in covert operations.
I was trained as a Navy SEAL. I've been involved in missions in and out of uniform.
We know the sector Nedry was when he disappeared. Stolen material seems to have been hidden in an aerosol can of some sort.
Deodorant.
Given the state of Nedry's personal hygiene, I doubt it. We can provide you with a map.
There aren't any dinosaurs left on the island.
Grendel International claims to have restored equilibrium. They maintain a small security force there to discourage trespassers.
So I go there and I steal this.
Reclaim.
I bring this can of DNA back to you.
Captain Overton will be your contact.
Hammond scribbles a number on the snack bar order pad, flashes it to Nick, and all the time wary of the approaching nurse. We see lots of zeros.
You will be amply rewarded for your risk, of course, with a generous bonus if you succeed. So?
Nick considers, nods, resigned.
I've done worse for less.
Excellent. Now, would you care for a sundae?
See, snacks. Exterior Isla Nublar day. We start with the aerial shot of Isla Nublar in the distance across the water, then tilt down to see a small local fishing boat in the foreground. Fishing boat. Overton is there checking a GPS instrument as the boat's owner, Ramirez, deals with a net thrown over the side facing the island.
This is the legal limit. There's a couple patrol boats we'll hear from if we drift any closer.
We pan to see Nick sitting on the deck beside the cabin, which blocks him from view from the island and pulling the last of his black scuba gear.
Give me 10 minutes and then pull out. You sure about this pilot?
They're used to seeing his plane around the coast. Eco tourists.
Nick nods and pushes a camouflage raft full of supplies overboard, clipping a nylon line attached to it in the back of his belt. Ramirez comes over to watch as Nick lowers his mask and sits backwards on the gunwale.
Buena suerte, senor.
God, Travis. Nick nods, falling backwards into the water and disappears. They watch the raft begin to pull away. Ramirez crosses himself.
Que Dios le Spanish.
Le Spanish. Okay. Exterior beach, Isla Nublar. The beach looks inviting. Gentle waves, strips of white sand, and a fringe of palm trees. Little crabs scuttling among the fallen coconuts. Hey, Scuttle was a different character. Suddenly, Nick sits up in the surf, quickly pulling off his flippers and mask and hustling across the sand to the shelter of the palms, dragging the supply raft behind him. palms. Very precise, very Mission Impossible. Nick strips off the wetsuit, opens the raft supply compartment, boots on, backpack, GPS unit, and laminated map on a lanyard over his neck. Then the weapons, automatic combat shotgun, small pack rifle with silencer, pistol in the holster and cell phone in the other. Nick crouches, sticks a homing device, as yet unarmed, into the sand at the edge of the tree line. He trots off into the jungle. Exterior jungle path, day. Nick moves quickly down the extremely overgrown pathway, passing oddly canted lampposts and torn, rusted sections of metal fencing. This used to be the tourist track through the park. He stops abruptly and listens. The usual Tarzan movie jungle sounds, nothing you couldn't hear on vacation. He checks his GPS, then trots away. We hold, then tilt up to a nearby lamppost to see a surveillance camera mounted near the top, swiveling to follow Nick's movement. Jungle. We shoot from ground level as Nick approaches from some distance, vaulting over a hole at the base of a gnarly rooted tree. We hold on the hole for a moment. A large, black, four-fingered reptile hand emerges, claws gripping the earth. Clearing. Nick is off the pathway now, moving through thick jungle till he reaches a small clearing. He checks his map and GPS. He sees something, climbs a slight rise, pushes away some tall weeds. An abandoned, rusted-out four-wheel drive vehicle. Nick yanks a torn flap of canvas away to reveal Nedry's skeleton. Bony fingers still clutching the steering wheel. A small lizard scuttles out through one of the eye sockets in the skull.
Looks like you've dropped a few pounds.
Newman. He rapidly searches in the interior of the vehicle. Seats, floor, gloved compartment, nothing but a flashlight and a light of old candy wrappers. He steps away, surveying the ground around him. Backpack. The backpack thumps to the ground. Nick unzips it and pulls out a piece of disassembled metal detector. An animal scream from back in the trees. Nick listens. It's quiet again. He glances at his watch, begins to assemble the metal detector. Ground later. We see the metal detector disc sweeping over the ground. Wider, Nick, t-shirt soaked through with sweat, has set up a grid with wooden stakes and string. He's working a section several yards down from the vehicle at the edge of the shallow little stream. He pauses, wipes sweat off his forehead. On a whim, he reaches the detector arm over the string and passes the disc over the little mud bar in the center of the stream. The machine crackles. Nick drops the detector and jumps into the stream, digging furiously at the mud bar with his hands. He stops, feeling something, and then pulls up a muck-covered Barbasol can. Nick kneels, washes the can off in the stream, and then pulls out his cell phone and punches a number.
Yo, objective secured. Proceed with extraction. I'll fire up the Homer.
He pulls a remote control from his vest, pushes in a red button. Exterior beach homing device. A blinking red light flicks on, the device beeping softly. Exterior jungle day. Nick moves quickly but cautiously through thick jungle, passing by a few of the big root holes. He slows, frowning, listening. A rustle behind him. A snap to the side. He starts up again very slowly. Again, the rustle in the brush around him. He brings his shotgun up, crouching.
Alejo!
Nick freezes, turns his head.
Oh.
Out of the trees, all around him appear a squad of 6 security rangers in uniforms, armed with short-barreled automatic rifles. The Jefe waves his rifle at Nick.
Deje caer las armas y pingase al suelo.
He wants you to drop your weapons and lie on the ground.
No tenga miedo, no más queremos la nota.
Don't be afraid. You only want, you can. Escopeta, por favor. Put it on the ground.
Nick takes a deep breath, calculating, looks around at the men surrounding him, and he sees something.
It's very good we find you before the dinosaurs do.
Rangers, Nick. We shoot from behind the Jefe and Segundo towards Nick.
I was told there aren't any left on the island.
Oh, there's a few.
Like the one standing behind you?
We shoot the Segundo in profile as he laughs.
That won't work, my friend. The ones left here only come out in the night.
Chomp. One of their head lunges into the shot, jaws clamping on Segundo's neck and shoulder. He screams. Wider, another raptor pops up from the hole next to Hefe. The Rangers start to fire their weapons, and another, jet black, ruby-eyed. Yep, the raptors, digging killers or just diggers, pop up from the holes. The men have been standing in the middle of a colony of them. These creatures are bow-legged with huge mole-like digging claws at the ends of their powerful forelimbs. Bap, 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 bap. The Rangers have their rifles on spray and pray as they panic and scatter. The Heve pinned under one of the beast's powerful legs. Nick darts past the Segundo as the digger lifts the man off his feet and shakes him. Automatic gunfire rips into the trees around Nick as he dodges through the thick undergrowth. A pair of the monsters pursuing him. Nick zigzags between the tree trunks, hurdles roots, and fallen logs while the bigger digger crashes straight through, slowed by the foliage. We hear screams and gunfire from behind, growing more distant. Nick gets hung up on a prickler vine for a moment, the lead digger gaining. Nick twists and Lamb blasts the creature in the face and neck as it rushes in for the kill. The digger staggers, falls to one knee as Nick tears free and sprints away. We hold the second raptor, reaches its wounded comrade, pauses, roars, and then continues the chase. Clearing. Nick staggers, bleeding from the prickler vine into the overgrown clearing. He leans his back against the grill of the abandoned service vehicle, faded Jurassic Park logo on the side. He catches his breath, listening, quickly reloading his shotgun. A pointy little lizard face pops up behind him, looking out through the shattered windshield of the vehicle. Compies. It's joined by another, and several more. They squeak. Nick stiffens, then whirls. Blam! He fires just as a dozen of the little carnivores stream out of the window at him. The ones that aren't blown back into the vehicle by the blast, leaping onto his face, shoulders, chest, arms, squeaking excitedly. Nick spins, swatting and snatching. Compies flying off them, then sprints for the nearby building. We hold on this abandoned shotgun lying on the ground. Interior building. We shoot through a half-broken window as Nick sprints towards us, a dozen compies in pursuit. He picks up speed, dives, folding his arms over his head. Crash! Shards of glass go flying as he dives through the window, does a forward roll, twists, and comes up on one knee, pulling his pistol from his holster in one motion. Pop, 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 pop. He picks off the compies one by one as they jump onto the windowsill. The rest of them seem to take the hint. Nick lowers his bead on the window opening, looks around. We're in a dusty staff barracks, a half dozen bunk beds, frames draped with cobwebs along the walls, footlockers, an old boombox, coffee maker in one corner by a row of standing lockers. Simple but not Spartan. A poster of a Tyrannosaurus, yay, and one I know, is starting to curl on the wall. Someone has drawn a knife and a fork in its front claws and written in a cartoon balloon above its head. Pass the tourists, please. Nick pulls the laminated map off his neck, studies it.
Staff quarters 1, 2, and 3. Utility tunnel.
ECU map, we follow Nick's finger over the detailed diagram over the park. Dotted lines indicating a utility tunnel that leads from the staff barracks to a power station near the south fence.
Leads to the power station, which is only 200 yards from the beach.
Nick looks around, steps over the hatch in one corner of the room. He bends, grabs the handle, pistol ready in his other hand, then yanks the hatch cover open. Nothing jumps out at him. Nick looks down into the blackness. He unvelcros a small but powerful flashlight from his belt, shines it down the hatch. POV hatch. We see a rusted metal ladder leading down a cement floor. Nick considers the tunnel, looks back to the window. 3 compies stand ready in the windowsill, watching. Nick whips his pistol around, but they jump away before he can fire. He looks back into the dark tunnel below.
No way, Jose.
He looks around and sees a ceiling hatch over one of the bunk beds. Nick crosses, makes the face as he swipes away thick sheets of cobweb, climbs up to the top bunk, reaches up. The eye hook and latch have rusted stuck together. They won't budge. Nick takes the butt of his pistol and gives it a hard rap. The hatch falls open and the top half of the half-eaten dead man drops through. This should be read. We should do this around Halloween. This is cool. Nick shouts in surprise, leaping backwards off the bed, sprawling onto the floor, whipping his pistol ready to shoot. The body is a security panger who has been gnawed on pretty bad, maybe a week old. Nick lowers his pistol, breathes deeply, trying to get his heartbeat under control. Wham! The digger crashes through the front door and tumbles across the room, sliding on the floor and knocking the coffee maker and standing lockers down on top of itself. Nick is trapped in the corner. The digger scrambles to his feet, roars, lunges. Nick pulls the bunk bed down over himself as a shield, crouching. Thunk, the raptor's leg goes right through the deteriorated mattress and springs, claws just missing Nick's throat. He scrambles out as the beast writhes to free itself and makes to the tunnel hatch and starts down the ladder, grabbing the handle on the underside of the cover. Ladder, Nick's feet. Crack, the rusted metal rings give way, snapping, Nick falling but able to yank the hatch cover. Thunk, thump, Nick hits the tunnel floor and the hatch cover falls shut, throwing us into blackness. Krang, the raptor claws punch through the hatch cover, then yank away, tearing away the thin metal. 3 stripes. Daylight appeared to illuminate Nick below. Getting to his feet, Krang, the raptor tears at the hatch cover again. Nick flicks the flashlight back on, trots to the dark, high-ceilinged tunnel ahead. Exterior island coast sky. We see through the palms to a small pontoon plane approaching over the sea. Interior cockpit control panel, homing screen. A jerry-rigged homing screen clipped with the control panel has a blinking red light lined up with the central crosshairs. Reverse pilot. The pilot, a hippie-looking character in a deadhead shirt named Darwin, scans the beach.
You're supposed to be here, dude.
Beach. We watch as the plane slows and comes in for a water landing, tracking to meet it as it taxis up to the surf line. Darwin cuts the engine, hops out and into the water, wrestling the little plane around so it's pointing out to sea, muttering all the while.
This gig is gnarly enough without being late, man. Security guards, spy gear, probably some kind of Psychosaurus is still running around the island. Yeah.
I think that's you, Travis. He runs a line from a U-boat under the tail assembly to thick roots, sticking up for a half-buried driftwood stump, glancing at his watch.
I give you 10 minutes, then I'm history, man.
Okay. Interior utility tunnel. Nick is trotting along the utility tunnel, pipes and wires overhead. So far, so good. He stops at a fork in the tunnel, shines the light on his map.
No fork on the damn map.
The roar of a digger echoes down the tunnel behind him. No time for eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Nick runs right. Crunch, 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 something underfoot. Nick swings the light down. Eggshells. Big ones. Dozens of them all over the floor.
Terrific. It's the nursery.
Wrong. Another echoing roar sends Nick running again. We hold and watch him trot away. Something in silhouette drops from the pipes above and follows. Low angle, Nick, trotting past us as his light fades, a pair of yellow reptile eyes right in front of us pop open. Nick. We track behind Nick as he rushes along. Up ahead, we can see a single shaft of sunlight angling down, the light at the end of the tunnel. Closer, closer. Nick points the flashlight beam ahead to see 3 spitters standing between him and the exit ladder. The one closest hisses, its frilled mantle popping up in display. Nick whirls around, shines the light. Here comes 4 more spitters, and behind them, honk, the digger closes in. Nick turns. Pop, 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 pop. The spitters back up a bit, but don't run as Nick opens fire on them. He clenches the pistol in his mouth, jumps and grabs onto the pipes above, swinging forward hand to hand, bringing his knees up to his chest as the spitters jump and snap beneath him, teeth just inches away. One of the spitters scrambles up the exit ladder ahead, turns, blam, blam. Nick fires, hanging by one arm for a moment. The spitter falls and Nick drops the pistol, swings forward and hooks the top of the ladder with a foot. Exterior park grounds, back fence. Nick crawls out of the tunnel opening and runs. A spitter pops up right behind him, looks around, and then is yanked back into the hatchway by its tail. Snarling, chomping noises, and the digger powers its way out of the opening, sniffs once, and heads after Nick. Fence. Nick looks at the 12-foot-high fence above him, back at the charging raptor. He slips his backpack off, tries to squeeze through the very narrow opening that some sort of animal has torn at the base of the fence. He gets hung up, squirms, and slips through just as, wham, the digger smashes into the fence head first, trying to grab him. Nick springs to his feet, sees that the backpack is just on the far side of the fence, Barbasol can visible in a webbing pocket. The digger starts to dig furiously at the base of the fence, huge clods of dirt flying behind him. Nick runs parallel to the fence, slapping it with his hand.
Come on, you stupid lizard. Come and get me. Come on, knucklehead.
The raptor leaves his digging and begins to run a parallel on the other side, catching up with Nick.
That's it, Einstein. Follow the nice man. That a boy.
Nick puts on the brakes and he sees ahead. 20 yards further down the whole section of the fence has fallen. The raptor sees it too. They look at each other.
See you on the beach.
Nick sprints back towards the original hole and his backpack. The raptor takes a step after him, thinks, then turns to race for the open section. Fence, backpack. Nick races back, thrusts his arm through the hole and grabs the backpack, yanks it through and runs for the trees, pulling the Barbasol can free and discarding the backpack. Beach. Darwin is looking at his watch.
Well, you're just in time to be too late, my man. I'm out of here.
Hey!
We
Hey.
pan with Darwin's look to see Nick break out of the tree line onto the sand a couple hundred yards away, sprinting towards him.
Start it up!
Darwin hurries out onto a pontoon and climbs into the cockpit.
No problem, dude.
He hits the ignition and the engine coughs into action, the prop spinning, picking up revs.
Lift anchor and we're airborne.
Prong, he swivels to the digger to see the digger bust out of the trees not more than 30 yards away. Nick pulls up short, the monster between him and the plane. He makes a beeline for the water, calling out.
Taxi out, I'll swim to you.
Digger. The raptor takes a look at Nick, already splashing onto the surf, and then at the big, noisy thing in the water's edge. It chooses the easier prey, charging towards the plane, bellowing. Plane, Darwin. Darwin panics, jams the throttle forward. Darwin. The plane blasts forward, but the tide has risen and there's a lot of slack on the line from the tail. Driftwood, crack the line, snaps and taut and yanks the root was tied to clear off from the stump. The plane picks up speed, the big driftwood root skittering in its wake. Closer, driftwood root. The wood skips and splashes on the surface like a dropped water skiing handle. Just as it hops past the camera, there was a sudden rising in the water beside us. Was that the crown of an enormous wedge-shaped reptile head, or are we just seeing things? We pan to see it as the plane lifts off. Digger. Thigh deep in the water surf, it bellows in frustration as the plane buzzes away. Nick is swimming out to sea for all he's worth. He looks back to shore. Unless that thing can do all the Australian crawl, he's made it. He treads water, waves to the sky.
Come back, it's all clear.
We pan to the sky, and yes, the plane is banking, turning, coming back and dropping towards the surface.
Easy, buddy, easy. No sweat now.
Plane. The plane steadies, platoon skimming the water's surface, driftwood route. The hunk of wood skittering along again till, whoosh, chomp, a Chronosaurus, gigantic sea monster that it is, shoots its 8-foot long head up and snatches trolling bait in its powerful jaws. The Loch Ness Monster exists. Crack, the line snaps taut and rips the whole tail section off the plane. Cockpit, Darwin. Darwin instinctively yanks back to the joystick, trying to pull up.
Woo, woo, woo!
Okay, Nick watches, shocked, as the plane pulls out, but can't hold its yaw with the tail gone. It spirals, heading back straight at Nick, arcing towards the water, closer. Nick takes a breath and goes under. Underwater, Nick. Nick tries to get deeper as the shape of the plane passes close overhead and we hear a muffled, watery crash. Surface. Nick pops back up to the surface, looks around. We pan to see the plane sitting sideways in the water, 50 yards away. Chunks of wing torn off and already floating. It settles upside down, the pontoon still on the surface, keeping it afloat. A beat. Darwin comes up sputtering, hauls himself onto one of the pontoons and sits gasping for breath. He sees Nick swimming towards him and calls.
Hey, man. What happened?
I just saw your tail section come off.
It never did that. without the A before. You got a phone?
Yeah, a wet one.
Hey, those security dudes don't have like a a submarine, do they?
A+ casting for this. This is perfect role for Travis. We pan with his gaze. Something big and long is moving fast, just under the water surface, straight at Darwin at the wrecked plane. Darwin. Darwin is standing now, backing his toes away from the water.
Because unless that's Flipper, I'm.
Whoosh! Snap! Splash! The Chronosaurus breaks the surface. That's the Loch Ness monster to you, sir. Snatches Darwin in its jaws, half its enormous body clearing water, then smacking down onto the water and diving. A huge serrated fluke slapping the surface as it disappears. Nick. Nick is stunned for a second, then looks at the shore. The digger is stalking at the beach, watching him. He can't go back there. Nick begins to swim parallel to the shore, looking around for the signs of a sea monster. He hears the chop of a helicopter and looks up. POV helicopter. A gunship-style helicopter is racing across the water towards him, flying low over the water, a rescue ladder already being lowered. Nick. Nick begins to swim towards it. Aerial shot. We look from above at Nick swimming, then tilt to see the Chronosaurus's back and forehead break water as it surfaces to swim after him. Surface. On the first pass, the ladder swings just out of Nick's reach, going too fast. He sees the Chronosaurus now, raising its head as it streaks towards him, opening its jaws. The helicopter banks and hovers. Nick grabs the ladder. He pulls himself up a few feet, shouts to the rescuers above him.
Take it up! Take it up!
Chronosaurus. We ride the back of the Chronosaurus as it powers towards that. This seems like a new ride that they're going to invent. We ride the back of the Chronosaurus as it powers towards Nick, who is still dangling temptingly only a few feet above the water surface. We look over the massive barnacled horned head as it lunges up. Snap! Just missing the bottom of the ladder as the helicopter suddenly shoots up in the air. Interior helicopter. We shoot out the side of the bay, seeing the Chronosaurus and the Isla Nublar receding in the distance, strong arms appearing to drag Nick in. He lies back on the floor, chest heaving. The man who leans over in his face is wearing the same Grendel Corporation security ranger uniform as the men on the island.
Hope you haven't forgotten our can, Mr. Harris.
Nick raises his head slightly, taps his ears if he can't hear.
Sorry, can't hear you. The helicopter noise.
Whop! Nanda smashes him flush in the face, lights out. Darkness. Silence. Then, slowly, the sound of the helicopter fades back up as well as the lights. Nick is lying on the floor still, blood on his face. He opens his eyes slowly and blinks. He sees the Barbasol can lying on Nando's lap just as an arm's reach away. Nando is busy joking in Spanish with the pilot. Nick swivels his eyes. He can see below out the side bay. They're cruising fairly low over the water, parallel to a thickly populated beach. Lots of swimmers in the water. Nick checks to see that his hands and legs are free, gathers his strength. Exterior beach. Overton stands among the beach blankets, running kids and sunbathers, watching the horizon, worried. A little boy approaches, selling shark tooth necklaces.
Señor, ¿quiere comprar un collar? Oh. ¿Has visto un avión?
We hear the helicopter approaching. Chico points up to it.
Aquí está.
Overton mimes the plane's wings with his arms.
No, un avión con alas.
Interior helicopter. Nick takes a couple deep breaths, then lunges, grabbing the aerosol can from Nanda and rolling. Exterior helicopter. Out the open bay. Exterior beach. A gasp from the spectators on the beach as the man falls out of the helicopter and into the water 40 feet below. Then applause as he pops up to the surface and swims rapidly towards shore. They think it's a stunt. The helicopter banks over the water and heads back to cut him off. Overton walks towards the shore, unsteady on the sand. Nick stands, struggling to get out of the water, hits the beach running through the delighted beach crowd till, boom, the chopper swoops down at him from behind, struts narrowly missing his head as he dives for the ground, rotors blasting sand at the now terrified people. Nick is up running again, aerosol can in hand, shouting to Overton as he sprints past him.
Ask for a cold one at Rodrigo's.
Overton turns and watches Nick duck into the cover of the lunch palpas and fried everything. Yes, we need fried snacks at the back edge of the beach. The buildings of the resort town rising behind them. The helicopter hovers above, turning his way and like an indecisive hummingbird. Exterior alleyway. Helicopter sound from above as Nick hustles down a back alley, hugging the wall to stay out of sight from the sky. He darts across the alley and in through the back door of a cafe. Interior kitchen, Rodrigo's. An old man sits in a small table shucking oysters. He barely looks up as Nick enters, crosses to check the action at the bar, then turns to look around the kitchen. Cooler. An ancient Coca-Cola cooler. It's really that ancient in one corner. Nick moves to it, lifts the lid, and sets the Barbasol can in the midst of dozens of bottles of beer. He turns to the old man.
Voy a enviar alguien para recuperarlo.
The old man shrugs and keeps the shucking. Nick looks up as the helicopter sound grows louder. Exterior street, late day. A vendor pushes his cart down a back street, hawking popsicles.
Paletas, muy frescos, muy ricos. Aquí tengo las paletas.
He passes and we see Nick, looking pretty beat up, standing back in a doorway. He's checking out the little Hotel Delphin across the street as he speaks softly on his cell phone.
Do what we agreed on before. I'll contact you when I'm in the clear.
Exterior street, Rodrigo's bar. Overton stands at the payphone across the street from the bar called Rodrigo's. Beyond him, we see thugs wearing sunglasses cruising up and down the street on the lookout for Nick.
It's very hot right now. Keep your head down.
Exterior street, Nick on his cell phone.
I'll do my best.
Nick clicks the cell phone off, pockets it. He considers the hotel, decides it's worth a try, limps across towards it. Interior hotel lobby. The desk clerk is reading a comic book and doesn't look up when Nick limps in.
Oven. Ha sido alguien buscándome, esperándome en el cuarto.
No, Mr. Harris. Nobody been looking for you.
Nick considers, reaches to take his key from his cubbyhole. Corridor. Nick limps towards us down the corridor. He turns the key, opens the door. Nando stands there with a different aerosol can in his hand, pointed at Nick's face. Nick's too exhausted to run.
What's that supposed to be?
Nando hits the button and sprays Nick in the face. Lights out again. Darkness. Silence. But this time, as the light begins to fade up, it's with the sound of yodeling. The interior tower bedroom, Nick, evening. Nick wakes in a cozy-looking bed in a round stone-walled room. He looks around confused. We're confused too. Yodeling? He sits up barefoot, wearing clean pants and a t-shirt. He stands, steadies himself, a little woozy, then crosses immediately to the thick oaken door. Tries it, locked. He crosses to the opposite side of the room and sticks his head out a tall rectangular opening. Exterior tower evening. We see Nick's head pop out through the window of the stone tower at one corner of medieval castle on a mountainside in the Swiss Alps. He looks right on the opposite parapet are two yodelers, an archaic lederhosen and plumed hats, giving their tonsils a workout for a crowd of tourists, standing down the other side of the moat. The yodelers finish and the tourists applaud enthusiastically, and Nick ducks his head back in. Interior tower.
I'm a prisoner in a theme park.
He looks around. His suitcase is open on a stand. His jacket's hanging in an armoire. Heralded banners hang the walls. There's a TV set on and remote control. He picks up the remote, flicks the TV set on, and begins to surf. French-speaking channels, German-speaking channels, Spanish, Italian. We're definitely in Europe here. He settles on a channel playing the nature documentary about the dinosaur pests and a narrator with a plumey British accent.
Oh my god. Compsognathus? Rarely sure, Carpies. Rarely exceed a full-grown pheasant in size.
TV screen. We see a trio of compies making forays into bite at a cornered, hissing raccoon.
But though diminutive, are extremely aggressive.
No kidding.
He flicks the TV off. Booming knock at the door.
It's locked.
A key fumbling, then the door opens to reveal a butler dressed in livery. He has a slight Swiss accent.
Well, they are ready for you and downstairs, Mr. Harris.
Yeah, okay. The butler steps away without closing the door. Nick considers. Interior Great Hall. Nick, fully dressed now, comes down a stone staircase that Basil Rathbone should be sword fighting on to see Adrian Joyce, a man only slightly older than Nick and very fit, swinging a halberd around in an elaborate martial arts display, thrusting, parrying, chopping, slicing, thoroughly enjoying himself until he sees that Nick has entered. He freezes in a backswing and smiles.
It's not only for ceremony, you know, the halberd. The Swiss guards who protect the Pope at the Vatican could do a good deal of damage with these. Of course, they've also got an automatic pistol somewhere under those crazy uniforms.
Maybe you should apply for a job.
Joyce crosses to hang the halberd over the enormous fireplace.
Haven't seen you since what?
Tegucigalpa, I helped get you kicked out of the country.
To be deported for Honduras. What horror must I have perpetrated?
Selling guns to the wrong people, as I recall.
But they were the right people when I began the transaction. The political sands are ever shifting.
He indicates the very huge great hall around them.
Something the Swiss understand better than anyone. This castle was built in the late 15th century by a local warlord and self-styled baron seeking to isolate himself from the endless armed conflicts of Europe, and, if possible, profit from them.
Joyce indicates a huge tapestry hanging on the wall, portraying a bloody battle with horses, lances, swords, shields, and plenty of dead foot soldiers littering the battlefield.
He hired men and trained them to fight, selling, I should say renting, their services to whomever put cash on the barrelhead. Security forces, invasions, sieges, the Swiss mercenary was a force to be reckoned with. My employer, the current Baron von Drax, is principal stockholder and CEO of the Grendel International Corporation.
Make a hell of a tour guide, Joyce. What do you want with me?
You have something that belongs to us.
I lost it in the ocean.
We'll match Hammond's offer.
I made my deal with him.
But you haven't delivered it, have you?
Nick makes a quick assessment of the situation.
It's somewhere safe.
I'm happy to hear that, Nick.
Joyce crosses to Nick.
I do apologize for the abrupt nature of your transportation here, but the sensitive nature of the material in question.
Like that it's illegal?
An edge of menace enters Joyce's tone.
There was some consideration given to torturing the whereabouts out of you. I suggested that, given your history, this would be counterproductive. Besides, we want you to work for us.
Interior passageway. Electric lamps on old torch sconces light the way as Joyce leads Nick down a narrow passageway and another stone staircase.
Grendel plans to use the material from Jurassic Park in much the same way as that envisioned by your Mr. Hammond.
United Nations.
When the infestation of creatures begins to seriously inconvenience the first world, the United Nations will snap to attention. Previously rejected solutions, drastic as they may seem, will be reconsidered solutions we'd be able to offer.
For a price.
Naturally. And then there's a related project, the one we hope you'll become involved in.
Nick slows as he hears a massive pounding ahead, like a pile driver, rhythmically destroying a paved parking lot.
Remodeling?
That's what we tell the tourists.
He unlatches a dungeon door in front of them and they step into interior dungeon. They stand in the entry platform above a well-lit stone dungeon, a few old chains still bolted to the walls for effect. Below them, nearly filling the room, is a heavily plated
Ankylosaurus.
Ankylosaurus. Okay, that repeatedly thrashing the bowling ball size, but prone to bowling ball size bone protuberance at the end of its massive tail as a kudgel. Yep, these things are words I know. Knocking dents into the wall and sending rock dust flying. Nick, Joyce. Joyce tries to fit his words between the rhythmic wham of the new dinosaur's assault.
A souvenir from our cleanup effort on Isla Nublar. We raised it from an egg.
From an embryo, to be precise.
Sherman has appeared behind them. He is young genetics whiz and sorely lacking in the people skills.
Ah, Nick, this is our chief of applied genetics, Sherman Fosdick.
I have a wonderful name, like embryos you stole from us. Maybe we should put him down with her for a while.
Be polite, Sherman. Don't be a dick. We haven't even had dinner yet.
Oh, I love that. Joyce leads Nick away, whispering as they go.
Too much Dungeons and Dragons, not enough socializing with the other children.
Why bother having that thing if you're going to keep it shut up in a dungeon?
Oh, one never knows when an ankylosaurus might come in handy.
They've reached another metal reinforced door. This one, however, opens with a swipe of Joyce's ID card.
Come see the new wing.
Interior laboratory chamber. Nick and Joyce step into something out of a James Bond movie, a cavern hollowed out in the core of the mountain beneath the castle, metal stairs leading down to a maze of brightly lit biological testing labs.
The castle sits on an enormous cavern in the mountain. The original Baron kept his wine down here. We've expanded a bit.
They start down the stairs.
Corporation paid for all this?
We have several products that are doing very well at the moment. An insect-resistant rye grain, super strains of hops and barley, and of course, we were the first in Europe to market pre-sliced cheese. Dairy is very important here in Switzerland.
Roar! A chilling roar echoes through the chamber.
One of your cows?
Interior raptor. Is that what I sound like? Interior raptor enclosure. X1 Spartacus. An 8-foot tall new dinosaur trots in circles, slams itself against the I-beams that enclose it, roars, and generally throws a fit in a bull ring size enclosure. Spray painted in Dayglow orange on its side is X1, and attached to the side of its head just above the ear hole is a regular box about the size of a cell phone. Interior observation room. A woman in a lab coat with the ubiquitous Grindel International logo on the pocket stands watching the beast and writhing on a chart. This is Maya Lundberg. Several TV screens are mounted on the wall above her, providing various angles of the beast's activity, while the panel in front of her sports a half-dozen vital function monitors of the EEG, MRI, and heart rate. She doesn't look up from her work.
This is X1, our alpha male, not in the best of moods at the moment.
If you keep them in captivity, you've got to accept a certain amount of neurotic behavior.
Training, not captivity, please.
Whatever.
Maya Lundberg, our head of behavioral modification. Meet Mr. Harris.
This gets Maya's attention. She turns to check Nick out.
The trespasser?
We all followed your progress on the island, sort of like an episode of Survivor.
Nick steps up to the window and looks at the raging beast.
So this is what, like a mid-sized Tyrannosaurus?
Dianacus.
Dionicus.
If you do that again, I'm gonna fucking smack you. No, thank you. Thank you. Terrible claw in Latin.
It's a Dionicus draxi. It's a subspecies.
Sherman checks the timer and looks at the panel instruments.
Wow. Look at that adrenaline.
Would you shut him down? He's gonna hurt himself.
X1 is too cagey to hurt himself, no matter how much we pump him up.
Sherman steps up to a radio transmitter, punches the timer, and turns a dial.
Call out when the reticular formation goes blue.
Maya's watching the brain scan image, which is rapidly changing from red to cooler colors. This new dinosaur begins to stagger a bit, appears confused.
Look at that! I'm only restricting acetylcholine.
Don't make him fall over again at his ribs.
Come on, baby. Nice soft landing.
The dino lowers himself into a crouch, partly supporting himself with his shorter front legs, breathing heavily and staring somewhat glassily into space. Nick is amazed.
We've placed a few strategic implants to let us control its hormones by radio signal.
No hormones, neurofetuses.
Right now, it's experiencing something like acute chronic fatigue syndrome. Before you came in the park, some of its gray matter controlling rage and aggressive behavior were stimulated.
You remember the cockfights in Honduras? When a rooster gets mad, blood flows into its comb, responding to the adrenaline. But if the handler put the comb in his mouth and sucked blood into it, so he was sucking the cock's comb. Anyway, the rooster got mad before he even saw his opponent.
Okay, Dick, now it's up to you.
Reptiles have very compartmentalized brain. Just like chickens, we don't get much spillover when we want to induce a specific emotion.
For what purpose?
For the dicks. Maya and Sherman look to Joyce. It's not their place to give out this information.
Let's leave that for tomorrow. You must be exhausted. You've traveled all the way from the Jurassic era to the 21st century.
Maya steps forward and takes his hand.
Mr. Harris, I look forward to working with you.
Joyce takes a last look at the pacified X1. Nick surreptitiously glances down at his hand. Maya has palmed a torn corner of her behavior chart onto which she has written, "Do not give them the embryos."
You kind of wonder what he's thinking, don't you?
Nick and Maya exchange a quick look, then Nick turns to look at the dinosaur. X1 seems to focus for a moment, meeting his eye.
He's wondering which one of us he should eat first.
Fade to black. Exterior mountain pass. A Land Rover with an open observation port cut in the roof glides over a spectacular mountain pass. Interior Land Rover, Nick and Joyce sit on the bench seat in the rear as Kroner Joyce's aide-de-camp drives.
We have our own valley to work in, and being the principal employer in the canton affords its own protection. The Swiss, as the world knows, are quite capable of keeping a secret.
They roll past a security checkpoint, waved through by the guard.
The West Road, Kroner.
Ah, absolutely, Colonel.
Colonel?
Something the boys in Africa used to call me.
Joyce stands to look out from the port, Nick following. Exterior Mountain Valley training facility. Several bunker-like buildings and a large caged enclosure clustered in the bowl of the little valley. They pull up beside the long cement chute with the steel mesh roof that extends out of the side of the mountain. Sherman and Maya are waiting in a cutaway Humvee with a dashboard filled with the kinds of monitors and controls we saw in the underground observation room. Around them in various pursuit vehicles are the training staff, a dozen hard-looking mercenaries with an array of long-handled electric prods, wicked-looking restraints, and heavy-duty weapons.
Has the objective been set up?
We're all ready to rip.
Let's bring them out then.
Nick realizes what's going on.
Oh, now you're not going to let...
I assure you they're totally under control.
Nobody believes you. The new dino and then another trot through the chute and stand in the open, standing several yards away from the humans, watching them warily. Both have regulators on the side of their heads. We can tell the spray paint on their sides. This is X2 and X3. Orestes and Perseus.
See?
These are more of those dino...
Deinonychus draxi. They already possess the super sensitive smell and hearing, the power, the pack hunting instinct we desired. Then Sherman got busy splicing genes.
of DNA from the egg-stealing raptor Orientalistes to lengthen the forelegs and to give them more dexterity with the fingers. I don't care how it's fucking pronounced. A section from the domestic dog that seems to foster obedience and receptivity to training, and a small section of human DNA that we hope will increase their problem-solving ability.
You don't get a leash on those things, we're going to have a major problem to solve.
Maya, let's give Mr. Harris a demonstration.
Maya stands in the Humvee, calls out in a commanding voice.
Raptors!
The beasts respond, turning to watch her intently. She signals with her arm, pointing down the dirt road that leads ahead to a stand of trees.
Forward.
X2 and X3 begin to trot down the road. Kroner pulls up to follow them, and the whole menagerie of vehicles joins them. Maya's control Humvee just behind the Land Rover. Joyce hands Nick a thick red armband about the size of a blood pressure cuff, and like the ones that all the other staff are wearing.
Put this on. It releases pheromones the raptors have been trained to avoid.
Nick slips the armband on.
Doesn't smell like anything.
To them, it does.
Nick watches the beast trotting up ahead.
They look different.
The raptors have, in fact, changed color since they first came out of the chute, from grayish to a mottled greenish brown that matches the countryside around them.
They're regular chameleons. Put them in front of a brick wall and you'd swear you could see the mortar.
So we're taking them for a stroll.
We're in convoy, moving through enemy territory.
Nick gives him a look.
I think you've let this colonel thing get to your head.
Joyce just smiles as they enter the trees, road narrowing somewhat. The new one slows down up ahead, then stop alert. Closer raptors. Quick shots of the raptor's nostrils shift, sniffing, eyes darting. Nick, Joyce. Nick looks around them into the trees.
It's out there.
They'll know before we do.
X1 and X2. The raptors suddenly dart away into the trees to the left, shrieking with aggression. Automatic gunfire open up from the position they're running at, an ambush emplacement dug beneath the fallen log. Nick. Nick ducks instinctively, but Joyce remains standing.
Don't worry, it's blank ammunition. Have to get them used to the noise.
Raptors ambush bunker. The raptors hit the bunker in the dead run, the lead one leaping and landing on the log above and firing position with the opening with both legs, the second charging straight and thrusting into the opening with its terrible claw. The two rapidly demolish the position, soft dirt and chunks of bark, wood and moss flying in every direction, till they've unearthed a rectangular iron protective cage containing two terrified mercenaries who've dropped their weapons and scream for help as the massive creatures roll the whole thing over and over, jabbing it with their sickle claws and stomping the bars out of shape. Staff. The other mercenaries have dismounted and move forward nervously with their various weapons and gear.
Shut them down, Sherman.
Sherman's worried, watching an instrument panel.
Sherman was in his own little world. They're on full restraint already.
Nick leaps out of the Land Rover, grabs the nastiest weapon he sees, something like an RPG launcher, from a mercenary and aims.
Grab him!
Mercenaries dive on Nick, wrestling the grenade launcher from him and pinning him to the ground. The raptors are subdued as well, breathing heavily but sitting back on their haunches and on either side of the battered protective cage. The men inside are equally battered but alive. Maya walks out to within a few yards of them and hands held before her.
Easy. Easy.
Nick watches from the ground, amazed at her courage or stupidity. Maya turns and calls to Sherman in the control vehicle.
Give them a blast of serotonin as a reward.
Sherman twists a dial, the raptor's eyes half closed with bliss.
All right. Just a little get up and go.
Sherman tweaks a different dial. Maya points back towards the chute.
Raptors, home.
Amazingly, the two monsters right themselves and, totally ignoring the cage, begin to move back towards the road and the chute.
Let him up.
The mercenaries warily let Nick go. He sits up and watches the dino pass.
You almost got those men killed.
On the contrary, We were just saved from a deadly ambush by our advanced scouts.
The mercenaries remount their vehicles and begin to follow the dino back while the pair of medics hurry to the cage.
Why should some poor grunt have to walk through enemy territory if you've got these creatures to do it? When Cortez conquered Mexico, he unleashed ferocious dogs on the terrified Aztecs.
Who were fighting with arrows and spears, with real bullets.
In a combat situation, they'll be fully armored. Just think of the psychological effect. Talk about shock and awe.
You want to use them as soldiers.
Shock troops, SWAT team, riot control, search and destroy, the ultimate in special forces.
Maya hops into the Humvee, not happy.
What took it so long?
I'm not sure. They were overexcited.
The fact is, you don't know.
They pull away. Nick walks over towards the cage. The medics have had no luck getting the twisted entry lid to open.
I forgot to cast this. We're going to have to torch this to get it open.
We'll send somebody out.
He watches Nick, who's still a bit shaken.
You've been the first man in on some of these operations, Nick. You know the casualty rate.
Can't control them.
Maya has taken them a long way, but she's not a professional soldier.
Nick turns to look at him, and this is the pitch.
I know your history, Nick. You've always done what you were told extremely well and never asked too many questions. You've been used and abused and don't have much to show for it. Isn't it time you got paid what you're worth?
Exterior training enclosure. A smaller dino, X5 Achilles, wearing a kind of harness around his body, paces in an outdoor enclosure about the size of the lion tamer's cage at the circus. A hunk of beef is hung just outside the bars. X5 approaches it warily. It receives an enormous electrical jolt, administered by Zeist, a rather sadistic mercenary at the console just beyond the bars.
We have learned our lesson, maybe.
The Humvee pulls up and Maya charges out of it.
Zeus, what are you doing?
We'll continue to see it whenever it pleases. It needs to learn.
The only thing it could learn from this is that you're a nitwit, and it probably already knows that. In the harness.
The neural implant induces nausea, not pain.
This is behavior modification, Zeus, not torture.
Joyce and Nick have returned as well. Kroner standing at something like attention behind them. Maya crosses to the narrow door.
Unlock.
It's very upset.
At you.
Zeus hits the switch and we hear a bolt shoot open. X5 hears it too, snapping to attention. Nick watches as Maya slides open a narrow door, squeezes in. Zeiss hits a switch and the deer closes behind her. X5 stands across the cage from her, wary. Maya doesn't move from next to the door for a moment, watching the beast.
Stay.
She slowly crosses to the beast, never losing eye contact.
Easy. Easy.
She's right next to X5 now, holding the eyes as she deftly unclips the harness and pulls it off.
Boy.
She turns her back on the monster, slowly walks to the door. The door shoots open. She squeezes out. Chang, the door shuts behind her. She turns to Joyce, still angry.
Every time I start to make some progress with this animal, one of your thugs sets it back 2 weeks.
We have a timetable to be aware of.
Well, you'd better push it back.
She strides away. Joyce indicates X5 to Nick.
A relatively new recruit. You know the type, lots of attitude, bit wild.
How many of these things do you have?
Unfortunately, the genetic engineering involved in their creation renders them sterile. If we're going to expand the program and have a breeding program.
We need the embryos that you stole from us.
I'm not so sure that's a good idea. What if you take them out for a spin and one decides to go AWOL?
Even if the neuroimplant malfunctioned, they wouldn't get far. Their bodies are capable of creating insulin, but lack the stimulant that causes it to be secreted. Only we can perform this function.
Without us, they can last only an hour, maybe less.
The patrol we went on this morning, she didn't train them to do that, did she?
Charmin looks away.
There was a South African gentleman named De Vroot. Wonderful storyteller, seemed to be getting on very well with his trainees.
What happened to him?
That's not totally clear.
We found one of his shoes.
Joyce slaps Nick on the back and winks.
Big risks, big pay, my friend. Dare to be great.
Interior castle dining hall. A long wooden table, tapestries on the walls. There should be tankards of ale and serving wenches, but instead it's Nick, Maya, Sherman, and Joyce sitting down for dinner with Baron Herman von Drax, a very self-satisfied character who has spent a lifetime getting whatever he wants.
Courage, intelligence, the so-called killer instinct. These qualities I've always looked for in my employees, but it is rare to find them all in the same individual. So I think, why not give nature a helping hand?
Human DNA we used in the Schlongosaurus Rex came from Baron von Drax.
Nick looks von Drax over.
Now that you mention it, I can see the resemblance.
Maya hides a smile, but the Baron is not distracted.
We created our warriors from only the finest ingredients.
You can combine behavioral attributes like you're making a cake.
At the moment, we can narrow them down to a certain section of the chain. It's possible that less desirable traits might, hitchhike, so to speak, and end up as part of the organism.
But this mix gives you something greater than its parts, full of hybrid vigor, like the Swiss.
The Swiss aren't sterile.
Von Drax shoots Nick a hard, appraising look, then bursts out laughing.
I am the 23rd Baron von Drax, Mr. Harris. I assure you that we are not.
Nick sits back.
In the Second World War, there was a program to train sea lions to place magnetic mines on enemy ships. Tireless swimmers, able to stay under without oxygen tanks.
Did they blow anything up?
Mostly fishing boats. They couldn't pass up a meal.
We're training our animals not to eat what they kill. That's been the most difficult instinct to modify so far.
So,
He looks to Joyce.
the embryos are on their way, Jean.
Mr. Harris is still considering our offer.
Von Drax looks stricken.
Consider it as quickly as you can, Mr. Harris. Patience is not part of my genetic heritage.
Interior tower room night. Nick sits on the edge of his bed watching a phony-looking war movie. He clicks it off, crosses the door, tries it. It's not locked. Interior stairway. Nick comes down the spiral staircase of the tower, noting several surveillance cameras as he goes. Exterior castle night. Nick steps out onto the torchlit parapet of the castle. He sees Maya sitting, brooding at the base of an ancient catapult. He approaches and taps the catapult.
I could send you over the moat with this if you'd like.
She looks up and smiles.
May take you up on that.
That's not the Grendeler national spirit I'm hearing.
Maya shoots a look down to the courtyard. Kroner stands leaning against a wall, pretending he's just out for a smoke, monitoring the conversation. Nick sees him, understands. Maya rises and they begin to stroll around the parapet.
Had a few setbacks today.
So how does one get to be a dinosaur trainer?
I got my doctorate in behavioral sciences, did some field work with wolves in the north of Canada till the grant money started drying up, and then, well, there aren't that many practical applications, so took a job with a circus.
Circus?
In the ring with a whip and chair, pushing the big cats through their routines. Then there was a certain trapeze artist I wanted to get away from, so when I was approached for this job...
You knew what you were getting into.
For my 15th birthday, my father promised to take me to the opening day at Jurassic Park. I've still got my ticket. When I heard it'd be working with animals that used to be extinct, well, I didn't ask too many questions about what they were going to be trained to do.
In the cage this morning, how did you know that thing wouldn't go for you?
Maya stops and they look over at the over the town and the mountain, only a few lights still on.
When a wolf pack works a herd of elk, they'll single out the weakest and orphan juvenile and older adult on its last legs and look at it straight in the eye.
Interior security room monitor, Joyce and Von Drax. Joyce and Von Drax stand watching and listening to Nick and Maya, who are being tracked by a surveillance camera.
There's a conversation of death that goes on between them. Hunter and prey, almost an understanding. I've seen the rest of the herd continue to graze peacefully while one of their number is set up upon and killed.
Joyce turns to reassure the Baron.
I wouldn't worry too much about Nick. He'll come around.
Exterior parapet. Nick watches Maya's face animated in the torchlight.
20 yards away, there's this grisly murder, and they keep chewing grass because they know it's not their turn.
So you just looked it in the eye and you could tell?
She's a bit of a hypnotist, Aunt Maya.
Joyce steps out from the base of the security tower.
But she doesn't really approve of our goals here.
Wild animals should not.
First of all, they're not wild. They're bioengineered. We created them. And like any other weaponized organism, their effectiveness depends on the skill of those who deploy them.
Turns to Nick.
Like any good soldier. Eh, Nick?
Good soldiers care what side they're on.
Oh, we're on the side of the angels here.
He pulls out a photograph and hands it to Nick. POV photograph. In the photo, a little girl about 10 sits on a pony, smiling at the camera.
Who's this?
Joyce looks smug, having played his trump card.
She's the little girl whose life you're going to save.
Interior strategy room wall screen. On the large wall screen is a blown up of an aerial photo of a section of a port city.
This section of the docks in Tangier has mostly been abandoned.
A ground level photo of a dilapidated shacks and warehouses appear on the screen.
Our sources inform us that Isabelle Chartier is being held somewhere in the quarter.
Wider. Nick sits with Joyce as he clicks the next image on the screen.
Her father is Bertrand Chartier, chairman of the Dumel Group, which maintains substantial financial holdings in many of France's former colonies.
A well-dressed businessman, Chartier, appears on the screen.
2 of his employees have already been kidnapped. The first, a minor functionary, was killed during protracted negotiations. With the second, a junior vice president, the company paid the ransom immediately, with the same result.
A photo of French police carrying a loaded body bag out of the tenement building appears.
And the kidnappers?
They seem to be motivated by a personal grudge against Monsieur Chartier, as much as by the lure of ransom money. They call themselves the North African Liberation Front, but the little we know of them suggests their motives are more criminal than political.
And you're sure she's still alive?
Joyce hits the clicker again. A shaky video appears on the screen. Several black hooded kidnappers move about in the foreground and background of a smallish room as little Isabel faces the lens, sitting at a central table.
Papa? Mama? J'aime sentir vous, me manque beaucoup. Ce jeune est Pavelson et il te capable autour ce qu'il demande.
He says she's scared and wants to go home.
They cross to a model of the waterfront quarter laid out on the table.
That arrived yesterday. They've given Chartier a week to deliver €2 million.
A week is...
It's all we've got. We can only hope they'll keep her alive at least till the ransom exchange.
I could take a half dozen good men and...
And what? Knock on doors? The quarter is half a mile square. Our Dionicus, given a few personal articles, will sniff the girl out within minutes.
So let one of them find her and we'll...
Come in with guns blazing? You notice in the videos they always have her in the center. To shoot at them, you might put her in the middle of a firefight. But if the only shooting, should there be any, comes from them...
And what if your dinosaurs bust in and one of the kidnappers keeps his head long enough to turn a gun on her?
Then she will be spared the very graphic sight of what happens next.
Exterior Valley Day. Nick stands before the 5 X's who are lined up outside the chute staring at him. Sherman, portable radio control in hand, and Maya stand behind him. Behind them are Joyce, Zace, and a dozen of Von Drax's mercenaries, armed and wary. Everybody is wearing one of the pheromone armbands. Nick is in drill sergeant mode now, standing at parade rest and calling out.
Any soldier worth his pay has a name to answer to, not a number. Even the most sniveling little lapdog answers to its name. Zeiss.
Sir.
See what I mean?
Nick walks slowly along the line of X's from highest to lowest.
Achilles, Hector, Perseus, Orestes.
He pauses in front of X1, the biggest and most uneasy, looking of the group, considers.
Spartacus.
He turns to address the humans.
You will learn these names, and from this moment forward will not fail to refer to and address the warriors by them. Only 3 members of the team will be chosen for the mission at hand, but all will be trained for it.
He looks specifically at Maya.
Now on, and this is very important, all military directives will be given by me and by me only. Is that understood?
Interior laboratory chamber, raptor enclosure. Very low light level, Spartacus slowly moves across the room towards a table with a soccer ball, a boombox radio, and a roast pig on a platter lined up on it. Observation room, Nick and Maya, Sherman, and behind them, Joyce, watch a night vision version of Spartacus's movements on a monitor.
Okay, give him the works.
Sherman flips a switch end, enclosure. Blam, pop, pop, pop. Sounds of gunfire and flashes are on all sides of Spartacus. He roars, then hurries to the table and sniffs each item, settling on the boombox, which he deftly lifts up in one clawed hand and moves back to the other side of the enclosure. Observation room. Nick clicks a stopwatch.
Stimulus off.
Sherman hits a switch and the fireworks stop. The lights turn on in the enclosure. Spartacus turns to glare at Nick. Nick nods back at him and clicks on a speaker.
Excellent work, Spartacus. Shoot us some love, Sherman.
Sherman turns a dial.
You're overdoing it with the serotonin.
Tomorrow, we'll reward and punish with insulin. Remind them that we control their vital functions.
We're making them into a bunch of drug addicts.
Someday a pat on the back and a good boy might be enough to motivate them.
He stares back at the defiant Spartacus.
I don't think we're there yet.
Exterior Valley, military music as we follow the raptors over and through a kind of obstacle course. They balance as they cross a single log bridge, climb a mock-up of 2-story tenement wall with fire escape, jump down, pick up speed to hurdle a trench full of fire, and finally slow to a cautious walk, sniffing at the ground as they go. We pan to Nick, Joyce, and Maya watching, all of them wearing helmets with safety visors, standing behind a protective wall.
Von Drax is not going to be too happy if one of his investments gets blown apart here.
They can't sniff out a mine 6 inches under the dirt. Their aggressiveness becomes a liability. Look at this.
We shift to see the raptors. The others are holding back, watching, as Achilles sniffs his way through the minefield, occasionally pressing his tail against the ground.
There's a scent gland under his tail.
It's marking a trail for the others.
Did you teach them that?
I wish I had. Saves time, only risks one member of the team.
Insightful behavior.
They watch as Achilles gets to the other side of the minefield, calls back to the others with a clicking noise. The other 4 wind their way single file along the exact route Achilles took.
Makes you wonder what else they've been cooking up.
Spartacus, at the rear, shoots a look to Nick. Exterior training enclosure, another day. Maya stands at the center of the cage where she took off the harness of Achilles. She's surrounded by the raptors standing at attention. She has an armful of little girls' clothing. Sherman and Nick stand outside the enclosure with Zeiss and a few other mercenaries.
When each one sniffs her clothing, I'll give them the jolts.
We want them to protect her, not be afraid of her.
What then?
Oxytocin to the forebrain.
You're going into labor.
In males, it reduces infanticide, promotes parenting behavior, and long-term pair bonding.
The daddy drug? The daddy drug? I didn't know there was one.
I'm doing this under protest. Jesus, Nicole.
I could say so many things here. He dials in the oxytocin as Maya offers the close up for each raptor to sniff.
We should repeat this every day till the mission. That smell is all they'll have to track her down.
Exterior Valley practice buildings another day. 4 practice buildings, shells that have been rigged up to resemble what we've seen in the waterfront quarter, stand not too far from the chute. 3 of the raptors, Spartacus, Perseus, and Orestes, trot out of the chute, each now wearing something like a flak vest strapped around their bodies. They cluster together. Observation blind. Nick, Joyce, Maya, and Sherman are in a dugout observation blind nearby, watching the raptors directly on video and on video monitors.
Body armor doesn't seem to bother them.
They're used to harnesses. It's fairly lightweight.
Maya points to a meter.
Talking it over.
See meter. An oscilloscope-like readout is hopping all over the place.
Ultrasounds.
Raptors. The 3 raptors have spread out as they approach the buildings, throats working but no sound we can hear coming out.
Way out of our range.
Spartacus. Spartacus lifts his snout, catching the scent. He makes a deep grunt, and the others join him, looking at a smallish shed made of corrugated metal. They split up, each taking a different spot surrounding the shed. Observers.
That's it, fellas. Triangulate.
Spartacus. Raptors. Spartacus opens his jaw to make another ultrasound, and the 3 charge in unison. Wham! Orestes headbutts through the front door. Smash! Perseus hops feet first through the side window. Crunch! Spartacus hits the opposite side, punching his forearms through the corrugated metal and ripping a huge section of the wall away. Pap, 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 pap. Blam! Blam! Test dummies dressed like the kidnappers and holding weapons are triggered to open up, firing loud bursts of blank ammo. The raptors rip into the dummies, weapons and body parts flying, dispatching a quartet of them in seconds. They turn to one last dummy, Orestes about to take the bite and then freezing. It's the dummy of a small girl, dressed like Isabelle Cartier in the video. Orestes sniffs, knocking the dummy over on its side. Spartacus grunts and Orestes moves away. The alpha raptor steps in, sniffs, then gently takes the dummy in its claws and rights it. Observation blind. Joyce is ecstatic.
That was spectacular, even with the kidnappers loaded up and on full alert.
Thin walls, no corridors to go down.
They're ready.
Sure. They're ready to take on an army of dummies. Flesh and blood kidnappers, though.
Ready or not, the payoff is scheduled for Thursday. We go tomorrow.
Joyce climbs out of the bunker and Nick is not pleased with the hurry up.
Blast them with bliss, Sherman, and feed them when they get back inside.
Interior cavern laboratory, night. Not much is happening in the lab tonight. A maintenance man runs a floor buffer. Interior raptor enclosure. Lights half dimmed, the raptors move slowly, uneasy. Interior observation room. Nick sits alone watching his warriors.
You be careful tomorrow.
Nick looks up to see Maya joining him.
I'm not the one they'll be shooting at.
It's not the kidnappers you have to worry about. When it goes down, just make sure you're somewhere safe.
I've seen you walk right up to them.
When I was in the ring with the big cats, I learned never to think that they were my friends. You turn your back and, well, they can't help themselves.
What if one went for you when you were looking it straight in the eye?
You let them have the DNA, they'll probably let you go.
Not here. I was held in the desert for 14 months. No war had been declared, so we were just... If we'd all disappeared, nobody would have made a fuss. She must be so scared.
Maya smiles sadly and gives him a kiss on the cheek.
Good luck tomorrow.
She exits. Nick goes back to contemplating the raptors. Fade to black. Exterior dockside, Tangier night. A big truck pulls up at the edge of the decaying Tangier waterfront and a battered SUV gliding to a stop next to it. The tailgate of the truck swings down hydraulically, becoming a ramp. Spartacus, Perseus, and Orestes step down the ramp. They're rigged up in the protective armor with the addition of the small night vision video camera on each, mounted on a shoulder. SUV Nick. The interior of the SUV is totally different than its outside. Very high tech with 3 monitors being fed by each of the raptors, letting us know what they see. Nick is wearing a pheromone armband and a speaker set on his head, leaving his hands free.
Quadrant hold, camouflage.
Perseus. Perseus pauses by an ancient two-story warehouse. A faded sign indicates it has something to do with olive oil. Perseus sniffs, then lifts his head and opens his jaws wide, calling ultrasonically. Spartacus, then Orestes appear to join him. They pull their heads together, facing the building. SUV Nick. Nick gets a good look at the building from the Raptor's cameras and checks on his location grid.
Looks like we've got something. Sector 12, building 362.
He brings the SUV to a stop, unhooks his seatbelt, and lifts a short-barreled automatic weapon from the seat beside him.
Let's just hope it's not a meat packing plant.
Warehouse. Perseus stays by the front entrance as Orestes moves round back to the loading dock, and Spartacus painstakingly climbs the fire escape that leads up to the second floor window. Interior warehouse. We're inside the warehouse on the ground floor, rows of barrels full of olive oil taking up much of the space. We move past to see a trio of kidnappers asleep on cots, weapons within arm's reach. 4 more kidnappers sit at a small table under a harsh light playing cards, their weapons propped against the chair legs or lying on the table. We continue past these men to see a set of iron stairs craning up to the second floor loft. We push through an open door onto the old office. 2 more kidnappers sleep on the mattress on the floor, while a third sits near the window, feet up on the ancient desk, Uzi in his lap, yawning and nodding off. In the middle of the room, curled up in the big upholstered easy chair with the stuffing coming out of the arms, is Isabelle Cartier. Exterior street night. Nick is out of the SUV now, ready to roll, looking in through the window in the grid locator screen. The Raptors, represented by 3 blinking red dots, have surrounded the building. Nick tense, speaks low into his headset.
All together, boys. Your go to enter.
Exterior warehouse, fire escape ladder, Spartacus. We watch the claws of Spartacus's foot grip the next rung up. He shifts his weight over so slowly, the fire escape metal creaking just a bit. 1 more step, he's up on the platform, looking in the window. Interior office. The kidnapper at the desk is nearly asleep. His back to the window as the massive head appears behind him, peering in. Exterior fire escape. Spartacus calls in an ultrasound, then interior warehouse office. Smash! Spartacus thrusts his head through the window, roars, then grabs the dozing kidnapper in his jaws, the man screaming as he's lifted and shaken. Ground floor. Wham! Perseus batters his way through the front entrance door, sprawling off balance, knocking into piled barrels and sending them crashing and rolling to the floor. Crash! Rip! Orestes begins to tear apart the metal loading dock door in the rear. The kidnappers at the table grab for their weapons, but bam! Perseus charges through them, splintering the table with a mighty blow, sending the men flying. Interior command warehouse. The mercenaries grab weapons and run out.
Go, go, go!
As they run out, we tilt down to a monitor. We see a terrified kidnapper firing his weapon towards the camera. Interior olive oil warehouse office. Spartacus has smashed his way in through the window, and the 2 men are on the mattress awake now, bap, 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 firing at him. Isabelle. She's sitting up, confused and terrified. She ducks as the dino clamps onto the arm of the chair, Spartacus using it as a springboard to leap across the room into the kidnappers. Isabelle throws her blanket over her head and curls into the fetal position. We hear thrashing and screaming. Ground floor. Bap, 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 bap. The kid appears scattered, firing their weapons, tripping over their barrels and upended furniture, sliding on the olive oil slicked floor. But both Orestes and Perseus are now in full attack mode, leaping, sliding, stabbing with their sickle claws, grabbing men in their jaws and hurling them across the room. 2 of the kidnappers duck out the front entrance. The kidnapper tries to run the iron stairs to the office, and he gets halfway up when, chomp, Orestes nails him from behind. Exterior street. Nick is hurrying down the street towards the warehouse. The 2 escaped kidnappers come rushing around the corner, see him, bap, 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 bap. They open up with their Uzis. Nick diving for cover behind the burnt out hulk of a tireless abandoned car. Rounds smash into the wreck, tearing chunks of metal off around Nick's head. Not the greatest cover. We shoot from profile as the kidnappers walk towards Nick, firing as they come. We change angle. We're 50 yards behind them and coming fast. Wham! Perseus flattens one of the men, running over him from behind, then wheels and jumps the other, tearing at him. Nick jumps up and runs past the Raptor to the warehouse. Interior warehouse, ground floor. Nick enters the front entrance. We follow him as he steps over smashed barrels, busted furniture, discarded weapons, dead bodies, and spreading puddles of olive oil. He pauses at the foot of the iron stairs, listens. It's quiet. He calls up.
Me, I'm coming up.
He changes channels on his headset and speaks more softly.
I'm in the building. No resistance apparent. Shut them down. Repeat, shut them down now.
He climbs the iron staircase, weapon at ready. Squeezing by the kidnapper's body hanging upside down, he reaches the top steps into the office. Spartacus and Orestes face him. One side of Spartacus' head with a mess, blood dripping down from it. Spartacus stands with one foot resting on the overturned easy chair. They look wild-eyed and not shut down at all, but don't attack. Nick takes a step forward. Spartacus hisses. Nick freezes, looks around at the devastation in the room. Blood on the walls, mattresses torn to shreds, the one body hanging out of the window.
Where is she?
Spartacus growls.
Done good work here. Outstanding. Where's the girl?
He sees the chair beneath the raptor's foot.
Back. Move back.
Spartacus hesitates and then slowly steps away from the chair, not taking his eyes off Nick. Orestes is starting to nod as the radio-controlled neuropeptides do their work. Nick steps forward, lifts the chair away. A small figure under the blanket, not moving. Nick takes the edge of the blanket and lifts. Exterior warehouse street. A half dozen vehicles screech to a halt in front of the warehouse. Mercenaries jumping out, fully armed.
Surround the warehouse. We don't know what's going to come out of there.
Hold your fire!
She points. Nick steps out of the warehouse with Isabel in his arms, the little girl clutching at his neck and regarding the mercenaries with wide eyes as he carries her through them to Maya at the ambulance.
Sonreal le montre que je vais vous.
No. C'est seulement un rêve.
Nick hands Isabel off to a medic.
Que je ne te protège à tes parents. C'est fini ton cauchemar.
Joyce is ecstatic.
Not a scratch on her. How are the boys?
Spartacus is shot up pretty bad. There's a lot of cleaning up to do in there.
Joyce signals to Zeiss.
Get on it.
The mercenaries hurry into the warehouse and Maya sips close to Nick.
You okay?
Nick grins. He's stoked from the action, the success of the rescue.
Never better.
Exterior castle night. Floodlights illuminate the courtyard of the castle as the helicopter lowers and settles onto the ground. Von Drax and his house staff are waiting and break into applause as Nick and the others step out of the chopper. Interior dining hall, champagne bottle. Pop! The cork goes flying and champagne is dealt into glasses. Von Drax is at the head of the table toasting Nick, Joyce, Maya, and Sherman.
Tonight, my friends, we have made history.
To our victorious dinosaurs.
They raise their glasses and drink.
The video was thrilling. I felt like I was in the room with them.
Be thankful that you weren't.
I think we are quite ready to show our capabilities to the world market.
Market?
There's another mission we've been planning, Nick, on a larger scale.
And this time, several interested parties will be on hand to watch, including a representative from your country's special forces, Mr. Harris.
We want you on board, Nick.
Nick considers a moment.
Do I have a choice?
I watched you out there. You were in your element.
Maya watches Nick, still flushed with victory, worried.
It's in your blood.
Interior raptor closure. Hector and Achilles put their heads together with Orestes and Perseus exchanging chirping and clicking noises. War stories. Fade to black. Interior strategy room table model day. We look down on the tabletop model an extensive jungle fortress, checkpoints, guardhouses, barracks, drug processing buildings, and lavish hacienda-style homes.
Pepe Aguilar controls a large percentage of heroin and cocaine still moving out from Latin America. He has a private army, his own fleet of cargo planes, and here at Cuchibamba, a state-of-the-art processing plant.
Joyce and Nick regard the layout. Nick nods to the blow-ups of aerial photos mounted on the wall.
So bombing off the map.
Aguilar also keeps several dozen prisoners in the compound, kidnapped members of prominent families, politicians from all the major and minor parties, and most importantly, the president's favorite niece. He's way back in the jungle here. To make a surprise attack with the number of ground troops you'd need,
It wouldn't be much of a surprise.
it's the perfect scenario for our very unique services. Penetrate their defenses and eliminate Pepe Aguilar.
Without hurting the hostages. This isn't a special ops mission, it's an invasion.
I suspect we'll need the whole team this time.
Exterior Mountain Valley enclosure. Nick, Maya, Sherman, and mercenary team face a pair of spitters through the bars of the enclosure. Both have control implants in their heads.
These things were on the island.
They seem to thrive underground. Hard to track them all down.
They bioengineered?
Sherman flips down the plexiglass faceplate on his safety helmet and takes 3 steps towards the enclosure.
Not to the extent of the Dickosaurus rexar, but they're relatively controllable. The Chlamydosaurus is, meaning Krill lizard, and the Fumoni meaning.
All the dino names have lost all meaning to us. One of the spitters raises its spiny mantle and hawks a plug, a sticky black mucus, chalk, through the air where it sticks, splat to Sherman's faceplate.
Well, you get the idea. We've trained these spitters with the idea that there might be some tight spaces we need access to.
Now on, they're Casper and Pollux.
Sherman wipes his faceplate clean and looks at the spitters.
Which is which?
Nobody knows. Exterior compound mock-up another day. Various of the drug lair structures have been recreated in the Valley training area. The control Humvee waits by the guard tower checkpoint. Guard tower, Joyce. Joyce, Dice, and another mercenary stand on top of the tower, Joyce watching the distance through binoculars. Interior Humvee. Nick, Sherman, and Maya watch the monitors in the Humvee.
Send them out.
Exterior Valley chute. Casper and Pollux emerge from the chute, followed by the 5 dinos. All are fitted with body armor and shoulder-mounted cameras. Interior Humvee. Nick speaks into his headset.
Squad forward to objective, maximum alert.
They watch the monitors as the animals head cautiously for the trees.
You'd think that the big ones would just eat the little ones.
We threw the chlamydiosauruses in with the syphilosauruses, and they've got glands full of that toxin, expectorate.
Those dinos were sick for days.
I bet the spitter wasn't too thrilled about it either.
Exterior woods. Casper and Pollux lead the squad slightly spread out through the woods. Casper suddenly stops, hissing, his spiny mantle popping out. He's standing a few inches from the tripwire, about 2 feet high, that runs from tree to tree. The dino carefully step over the wire as the spitters furiously dig, quickly burrowing under it. Interior Humvee. The humans watch on the dino cam monitors. Exterior woods. The squad has come to a spot where the trees thin and we can see a metal fence ahead, 8 feet high with concertina wire on the top edge. They slow, the bigger dino stepping to the foreground. Interior Humvee.
All right, direct entry this time. Flying wedge.
We see some rearranging of their positions on the monitors.
Go.
Monitors. On the 2 monitors, we see the POV of the bear as the bear rushes towards the fence. Exterior trees. Spartacus and Hector are sprinting full tilt towards the fence as the others trot behind them. Wham! They leap in unison and hit the fence with both hind legs extended, flattening 10-foot section and making a breach. The others pour through and all spread out the mock-up compound. Exterior compound tower. Joyce brings the binoculars down.
Here they come.
Interior Humvee monitor. One of the spitter's monitors, we see somewhat camouflaged machine gun bunker up ahead. The spitter dives in. Exterior interior barracks. We follow as Orestes and Perseus bust into the long barracks building, tossing furniture and narco dummies as they hustle from one end to the other. Exterior courtyard. Achilles bursts into the courtyard where the guard tower and Humvee sit immediately, wham, charging to butt his head against the base of the tower, knocking it off center. In the Humvee,
You're supposed to climb that, not knock it over.
It's Achilles.
Shut him down.
Tower. Wham! Another charging headbutt, and the tower is at 45-degree angle, wood beginning to crack and give way.
Shut him off! Shut him off!
Achilles takes another running start, this time jumping on the side of the tower, his weight bringing it crashing to the ground. The men roll out of the crow's nest and mercenary coming up firing, bap, 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 but Achilles silences him with the deadly downward swipe of his sickle claw. Humvee.
Off. Shut them off. All of them.
I have. They should be unconscious.
Wham! Achilles hits the Humvee broadside with his head, and they're rolled upside down. Nick tries to clear his pistol, and Sherman freaks.
Oh, please don't eat me. Please don't eat me. Please don't.
Quiet. Very quiet. Then a face appears at the passenger side window, Nick whipping his gun around.
Easy. He's down.
Achilles. The dino lies on his side, breathing shallowly, a glazed look in his eyes as Nick, Maya, and Joyce approach. Sherman sits on the side of the flipped Humvee behind them, shaking uncontrollably.
A berserker. We've had problems with him before.
I think he knew exactly what he was doing.
The response time on all of them keeps getting longer.
They're not machines. You can't just point your finger and expect them to kill whoever you want.
Are you suggesting they have a conscience?
It would be nice if someone around here did.
If you're not behind the program, Maya, you can always...
Quit? I'd be dead before I got across the moat.
It's out in the open now, Joyce and Maya glaring at each other. Zeiss returns, rifle in hand.
The others are all down too. Looks like they're just talking. Looks like they're just taking care of business.
He gives Achilles a hard kick in the ribs. Rude.
It's just this son of a.
He sees and hears everything you do.
Not for long.
Zeiss butts the barrel of the rifle to Achilles' temple.
Belay that. We need to know what went wrong here. I want a full workup on him and a report tomorrow morning. We don't have time for this.
Maya's looking down at the body of the slain mercenary.
What about him?
Accidents happen.
He steps close to her, menacing.
Which is why we must all be very careful.
Exterior courtyard evening. The courtyard is lit up with torches. Baron von Drax is engaging in some target practice, shooting bolts from the ancient crossbow across the courtyard to shatter porcelain vases that have been set up in a row. Joyce looks on as Chrono reloads the crossbow after every shot. Nick steps out from the base of the tower just as smash, a vase is shattered only a few feet from him. Zeiss stands behind him, armed.
Nice shot. I
All right.
said, nice
So-
shot.
I am an expert with several archaic weapons.
Very useful if you run into some archaic enemies.
And what about you, Mr. Harris? Are you a friend or an enemy?
An employee. He says you wanted to see me.
Would you not mind placing another vase on the stand for me?
Nick picks up a vase from the ground.
These look expensive.
Priceless. But I am tired of it.
Nick reaches to put the vase on the target stand. Smash! Von Drax shoots it out of his hand. Nick looks at his hand, cut and bleeding, then calmly turns to face the Baron.
As I am tired of waiting for you to return our property.
We don't really have a deal, do we?
Your payment.
My payment isn't much good unless I'm free to spend it.
Von Drax points and reloads the crossbow at Nick's head.
You wish to leave us?
Nick walks slowly across the courtyard, straight at Von Drax. Joyce watches his boss, tense, not sure the Baron won't pull the trigger.
We need him.
Nick stops only a few feet away from the deadly crossbow, and he speaks softly.
Keeping Maya here. She wants to go.
Miss Lundberg is not one of our more enthusiastic employees. No. But it wouldn't be prudent to.
Let her leave. No strings, no repercussions, and I tell you where I left the aerosol can.
Talks about what we're doing here.
After the demonstration, you'll be begging for publicity. The whole point of a strike force like this one is to intimidate the people who don't have one.
And if we let her go, You'll stay with the program.
Like you said, it's what I was meant to do.
Vondrax smiles, shifts the aim of the crossbow ever so slightly, and fires past Nick's ear. Smash!
We have an agreement. Now, where are the embryos?
Interior dungeon. That other dino. Wham! 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 The dino methodically smashes his tail into the dungeon wall, a pile of stone and mortar at its feet. Nick watches the great armored beast, thinking. Maya joins him, watches for a moment.
Now how he feels.
Talking to each other.
Interior cavern, isolation cage. We see Achilles pacing in a steel-reinforced isolation cage. He makes a high-pitched call and is answered by several of the other dinos, their calls echoing from another part of the cavern.
They've been going at it for hours.
Observation booth, Nick and Maya. Nick and Maya look in from the booth, and Achilles calls again.
He's telling them about his escape attempt. Like any other good prisoner, we used a tapping code.
Do you think that was all planned today?
Somebody has to test the envelope, see how far you can get.
What Sherman did today would have killed this animal a month ago. Their brains must be developing new pathways, rearranging circuitry like people do after a stroke.
Roar! Achilles screams, staring defiantly at the two of them.
I told them where the embryos were.
Nick, no! Why would you do that?
As soon as this demonstration is over, no matter how it goes, you're free to walk.
And you trust them.
No, I'll work for them.
How can you say that?
Mercenaries have existed all through history, like weapons. The only question is who's using them and what for.
Maya looks at him for a long moment, glances up. Maya's POV surveillance camera, wide lens security camera stares down at them. Wider, Maya leans forward and kisses Nick. She breaks off the kiss and leans her lips close to his ear, whispers.
Who do you think had that little girl kidnapped?
We see into Nick's eyes as he realizes the nature of the devil he's just made a deal with. Interior security room night. A security guard writes down his observations as he watches Nick and Maya on one of the many surveillance monitors in his desk. Interior Rodrigo's bar kitchen day. 3 tough-looking guys in shades into the near-empty bar. They head straight for the back room, the bartender calling out.
¿En qué puedo servirles, señores?
We follow them into the kitchen. The same old man is shucking oysters, and he barely looks up as the 3 enter.
El congelador?
The old man points with his knife, and they go to the freezer and open it. POV freezer. Nestled among the chilling cervezas is the same aerosol can Nick dug up on Isla Nublar. The head tough guy lifts it to his face, gives it a twist. The top pops up to reveal a chamber, which lies several metal tubes.
Eso es.
Or is it? Bar. The thugs hurry out of the bar with their prize. The man in the foreground, who was passed out with his face on the bar counter, raises his head to watch them go. It's Overton. Interior jungle clearing day. Nick waits at the edge of the clearing in the jungle, his ATV parked on a narrow logging road behind him. He looks at his watch, then at the sky. We hear the drone of airplanes. Exterior jungle village. A small village with a river on one side, jungle wall on the other. A half-dozen military vehicles of various sorts are parked in the center of the village. Mercenaries waiting around for orders. Interior headquarters building. Inside the biggest structure, a command headquarters has been set up. A bank of DynoCam monitors takes up one wall, manned by a pair of Grendel technicians. Representatives, some in the military uniform, some not, from Asia, Europe, Africa, Latin America, Russia, mill around waiting for the show to start. Joyce stands nervously looking at his watch as Baron von Drax chats in German with a uniformed colonel nearby, presenting him with something from his collection. The colonel poses for a snapshot with the weapon. Sherman checks the biometers as Maya sits nearby glumly regarding the scene.
You've got him.
Hubbub is in as many languages as the spectators cross to watch the monitors. Joyce acts as master of ceremonies.
Though the objective is not a great distance from here, we felt that any demonstration of our special capabilities should include an aerial insertion.
Monitors. On most of the monitors, we see images too dark or fuzzy to interpret. Suddenly, on one, we see the cargo door of a transport aircraft slide open and the cameras launched into open air as its bearer jumps out. Another and another of the monitors show the same image, open sky, then bits of the jungle below.
What is big deal? Dropping weapons from plane.
A collective gasp as on one of the monitors, Orestes, suspended from the parachute, swings into frame.
That, gentlemen, is the big deal.
Exterior clearing sky. The sky is full of parachutes floating earthward with the dinosaurs hanging from them. This would be an interesting sight. We tilt to Nick, who shakes his head in amazement, then speaks to his headset.
Squad form and proceed to target. You're on your own, fellas.
He gets onto the ATV, shoots a last look at the sky, and then motors away down the logging road. Sky, Spartacus. We drift down, shooting past Spartacus towards the clearing from under the canopy of chute. His powerful legs easily take up the stock of landing. Pop! The buckles on his chute harness separate with a small explosion and the harness falls away. Spartacus stepping away from it. We see other squad members making similar landings in the background. Interior headquarters building. The spectators are amazed as they watch. Captured on another creature's camera, we see Casper hanging up in a tree on the edge of the clearing, the chute snagged on branches.
I must inform you that this is the first jump our operatives have undertaken.
Pop! The harness released and Casper falls a few feet before snatching a branch with his tail, then swinging to grab the trunk of the tree before shimmying quick as a squirrel.
But as you see, they are somewhat more resilient than conventional forces.
Exterior clearing. The squad quickly melt into the jungle at the far side of the clearing. Exterior jungle village. Nick pulls up in the ATV, hurries into the headquarters building. Interior headquarters building. Nick crosses to Joyce, glancing at the dino cam, images of the jungle being traversed.
I thought we'd lose at least one.
How do the bio readouts look?
Heart rates went through the roof when we jumped them out of the plane, but they're back in predator mode already.
Nick is distracted as he sees a half dozen narco-looking characters watching one of the monitors.
Who are they?
Those are the gentlemen who hired us.
They look just like the bunch we're trying to take out.
A rival group. They've made a deal with the government, and their end of it starts with eliminating Pepe Aguilar.
We're working for drug runners.
An unproven product. The need for a great deal of discretion, and they were the highest bidders.
Nick scowls as Joyce waves somebody over.
All the major players have sent somebody to observe. You know, Andy Slade.
Slade, a hard-looking American, nods to Nick.
Yes.
I'm not Slade.
Yeah, you didn't ask about Slade.
We don't talk about.
Harris, I think it was at a checkpoint on the Turkish border.
Still in?
Insulting. These things know what they're doing.
Only too well.
Tracking screen. Blinking red dots move across the screen towards the rectangular swatch of green.
Approaching out of perimeter.
The tracking technician points to an eighth blinking dot way behind the others.
This one's still lagging.
Zeiss enters, crossing rapidly to the Baron, whispers something. The Baron's face reddens. He signals to Joyce to come over. We meet Joyce as he joins the Baron.
Something wrong?
The aerosol can has arrived in Draxburg.
Excellent. Excellent.
Dr. Wexler has analyzed the DNA. He saw it right away.
Saw what?
Hot toads. He gave us genes from hot toads.
Joyce looks over at Nick, furious.
Stay with Harris and the woman. The slightest sign of sabotage or escape and kill them.
My pleasure.
Exterior jungle day. The raptors move rapidly through the thick jungle. Spartacus in the lead stops to sniff the air. The others freeze behind him, alert. Spartacus makes a low grunt and Casper and Pollux move forward. The others follow the two spitters more slowly now. Pollux. The spitter slinks with his belly close to the ground, head low, barely disturbing the underbrush. Suddenly he pops his head up and spits. We whip pan as splat, the black mucus gobs hits the lens of the surveillance camera mounted in a tree. Interior narco compound surveillance room. Two outer perimeter screens are suddenly black on the surveillance console. A narco guard stands looking over the shoulder of the baffled desk man.
Okay, past 6.
Acabamos de perder, mi gente.
¿Viste algo?
Creo que vieron un lagarto.
Un lagarto.
The desk man spreads his arms to indicate size.
Un lagarto grandote.
Exterior jungle. A perimeter guard is out walking sentry at the edge of the jungle, pacing, listening. He stops by a tree, pulls out a cigarette, lights it. Suddenly, the spitter swings down inches from his face, hanging upside down from a branch by its tail, and snap grabs the startled man's face in its jaws. Several of the dinos pass the grisly scene, hopping like kangaroos over a 2-foot-high tripwire strung between the trees. Another area, jungle, a loose shot as the squad of narco guards pass, automatic weapons ready, searching the trees all around them. Their squad leader is talking softly into a cell phone.
No, hey, there's no sign of anybody. We'll check the cameras. The humidity is tough on them.
Good call, Travis. Good call. We let the squad for exit frame hold the beat. Then Spartacus and Perseus seem to materialize from the jungle before our eyes. Their chameleon-like camouflage and ability to freeze still so effective that we're staring at them all the while. They move off in the opposite direction. Interior machine gun bunker. Two machine gunners peer out at the jungle through the camo netting, crouched behind their machine gun in a dirt-filled bunker, listening hard.
Juro que puedo oír algo. O mejor, sentir algo.
Whoosh! Casper bursts up from the floor behind them, dirt flying. As they whirl, he hisses, his spiny mantle popping out. Interior barracks. We're in the main barracks for the narco soldiers, which looks not unlike a jock dorm at a large university. Posters of babes on the walls, guys lounging around in their underwear, smoking, reading magazines, watching a camera, a giant Japanese turtle that emits flames from its butt when it flies to the rescue. We're learning all kinds of new animals today. Movie on the big screen TV. Wham! Orestes bursts in the front entrance. Wham! Achilles bursts in the rear entrance. Bedlam as the dino charge in from opposite ends, smashing, tearing, chomping at the screaming, terror-stricken narcos. Exterior compound tower. Bap, 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 bap. A machine gun opens up on the main tower as Spartacus and Orestes break into the compound. Hector scrambles up the side of the tower and Chomp deals with the sentry. Drug lab. A half dozen narcos come running out of the long rectangular drug lab, blasting it away with their weapons as Spartacus charges straight at them, rounds smacking his body armor. Pounce! Orestes leaps on top of the men from the roof, behind them flattening a pair and then tearing into the others. Interior jacuzzi room. Pepe, wearing nothing but a lot of gold chains, kicks back in his enormous jacuzzi, water jets churning away with a pina colada in hand. Now I'm gonna have that song stuck in my head. And salsa music on the stereo. He looks up, surprised to be interrupted, and his bodyguard hustles in.
Nos atacamos.
¿De quién?
A dinosaurios.
Pepe starts to laugh.
Ha sido el producto otra vez. Aquí probamos las drogas, no las tramamos.
The bodyguard lays an Uzi at the edge of the jacuzzi and hurries away.
Le dejas todo.
We hold on Pepe, shaking his head.
Gar de palabras pendejos.
Takes a drink, closes his eyes, and sinks back into the churning water. Exterior compound, prisoner quarrel. Corral. All around, we hear sporadic gunfire and human screams as Spartacus kills the guard in front of a fenced-in area, then clang tears the gate off its hinges. A couple dozen prisoners kidnapped by the narcos cower against the back fence as Spartacus steps in, roars, and then lowers his head to sniff at the petrified occupants.
See, it's the end. It's the end of the world.
Spartacus straightens, roars again, and exits. A few of the prisoners fall to their knees and give thanks for their salvation. The courtyard. Gunfire and screams continue as we follow a trio of narcos jump into an SUV and patch out, swerving to avoid Orestes, who is busy demolishing the guardhouse. The SUV hurtles towards the exit gate, but the dino last to arrive is coming in. The dungeon dino is just coming in, and huge armored body filling it in the opening. The driver slams on the brakes, throwing the SUV in sideways skid, dust billowing up till smash, it hits the dungeon dino and flips over its back, landing behind it on its side. Wham, wham, wham! The beast instinctively begins to smash the metal attacker flat with the club on its powerful tail. Interior drug lab. Hector charges through the long drug lab, chasing terrified workers before him. Apparatus smashing all around as he rampages through and over the tables, leaving white powder flying, sizzling chemical spills, and a spreading fire in his wake. Interior headquarters building, the narcos who have hired Grendel are disarrayed as they see the lab trash on Hector's monitor.
This wasn't our deal. What's it doing?
It's his problem.
He doesn't know how to do accents.
They were
That's his
hoping to
problem.
be able to recycle most of the drugs and equipment in there.
Nick catches Maya shooting him in, and I told you so look. Tracking screen. The blinking dots have congregated in one small area.
They're inside Pepe's mansion now.
Interior Pepe's mansion portrait. A portrait of Pepe, dressed slick and leaning on a red Porsche, hangs on the wall. Splat! A plug of bitter mucus hits the portrait and bubbles. Something in the canvas. We pan the hallway, decorated in very expensive, very bad taste, where the bodyguard sprints past, firing an occasional shot behind as Casper chases after him. He ducks around the corner. We hear a roar and a scream, and Orestes trots around from the corner with the bodyguard still struggling in his jaws. Lobby staircase. Tropical plants adorn the ostentatious lobby that leads to the carving marble staircase. A pair of narcos come running down the staircase, one tripping and sprawling down end over end, and the other gaining the ground floor, running straight at us. But Perseus appears above him, leaping over the banister and landing with both feet, thump right on top of the man. Interior jacuzzi room. Pepe, hearing the screams and gunfire outside, now has the Uzi in his hand and is a worried look on his face. Bam, 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 something is battering the vault door that protects him. Hallway. A fire has started further down the hallway, smoke starting to billow at the dungeon dino pounds the vault door again and again with his tail. The wall around the door starting to crumble. The smoke envelops the beast just as crash, the whole section of wall and door fall inward. Interior jacuzzi room. Pepe stands in the middle of the still churning jacuzzi, doing his Scarface routine, Uzi pointed and ready, trying to see through the smoke.
Bueno. ¿Quieres jugar?
Suddenly, the two spitters leap through the smoke, mantles puffed out, shrieking, and land splash, splash, smack in the jacuzzi with Pepe. We hear screaming, splashing, snarling as blood sprays on the fluffy white towels hanging on the wall. Exterior jungle village. Joyce leads the observers out to their waiting vehicles.
All right. We'll head over while they're mopping up and you can get a closer look.
This is safe.
If we can turn them on, I assure you we can turn them off.
They pass and Nick and Maya exit. Zeiss is waiting by the vehicle, pointing his pistol at Nick's head.
You two are coming with me.
Our deal was...
Just get in.
Exterior, interior, drug compound, various shots. Quiet. The place looks bombed out. Toppled towers, burning buildings, the trashed, burning interior of the lab, bodies and furniture strewn around in the barracks, on the huge TV, lying on its side now. The Gamera, with his little fire farts, saving small Japanese children. The dungeon dino is peacefully grazing on the tropical foliage in the lobby of Pepe's mansion. Blood smears on the white marble floor and staircase. Blood fills the still churning jacuzzi. The kidnapped prisoners cautiously step out from their enclosure for a look. Courtyard. The squad, all present except for the dungeon dino, regroup in the courtyard. Achilles is badly wounded, blood covering his throat and staining his body armor. Spartacus approaches him slowly and crack lashes out with a front claw to smash the shoulder-mounted camera. He reaches up and grasps the control implant with his dexterous claws and rips it from Achilles' ear. Exterior logging road. A convoy of vehicles, the control wagon in the lead, moves down the narrow dirt road through the jungle. Interior control wagon. Joyce and Sherman watch, incredulous, as the other Raptors follow suit, smashing each other's cameras, one dashboard monitor after another, going black.
What are they doing?
Deactivate. I want them out of contusion when we get there.
Exterior drug compound. The Raptors, with their cameras and implants all destroyed, head out through the front gate, stepping over the flipped, battered SUV. Interior control wagon. Sherman watches the tracking screen in the vehicle with a mounting alarm.
They're still moving. They're still moving.
Why?
I don't know.
Where are they going?
Sherman watches the blinking red dots for a moment. He gives Joyce a scared look. Interior vehicle, Nick and Maya. Zeiss has a pistol casually pointed towards Nick as he drives, Maya in the back seat.
Did you think you could fool us with the frogs?
Figured once I had the can, somebody was going to come after me. Setting up a decoy was just a way to buy time.
Talking about?
Your boyfriend gave us the wrong can of jeans.
Maya looks to Nick, thrilled to hear this.
You?
Zeiss looks up ahead.
Why are we stopping?
Convoy. Joyce is out front, looking ahead down the narrow logging road, worried. Kroner, driving, sticks his head out of the control wagon.
It's too narrow to turn around.
Well, we can't back up all the way to the village.
Sorry, I was kissing my cat. They're a quarter mile away and coming fast.
Drivers and observers are popping out of their vehicles now to see what the holdup is. The Baron calls impatient.
Why do we wait?
There's a problem on the road ahead.
What could be? God damn it.
We whip pan to see the squad of Raptors tearing down the road towards the convoy. Everyone jumps back into their vehicles and there's a desperate automotive scramble as they all try to turn around and speed away at once, resulting in something like a demolition derby, vehicles smashing into each other and into trees, getting stuck in the muck alongside the road, and then roar! Spartacus and his squad hit the convoy like a tidal wave, butting, slashing, kicking, knocking the small vehicles over and stomping on the larger ones. One mercenary is plucked clean off his motorcycle by Hector, while another dodges away, only to have Pollux leap into the back of it and wrap his arms around the motorcyclist. The guy glances back to see who's hitchhiking, screams as the spitter opens its jaws. The narco's car, one tire slashed and bumping, and the Mercedes carrying the Baron managed to turn and speed away. In Nick's car, smash! The dino foot busts through the windshield, and Sickle Clawed pinning Zeiss to his seat. Nick and Maya bail out their doors. Orestes and Perseus pursue a half-dozen observers into the jungle. Whomp! Slade, thoroughly chewed upon, falls from above and lands hard on top of an SUV. Interior Mercedes. Baron von Drax looks over at his driver's shoulder. The narco car ahead is fishtailing, unable to make the speed and hold the road with the front tire blown.
Schnell, schnell!
It's in our way!
Then push it out of the way.
The driver mashes the gas pedal. Logging road, the vehicles blast towards us, the Mercedes catching the tail of the narco car and wham, knocking it sideways to head on against the roadside tree. One narco flies over us through the windshield and the Mercedes blows by. Achilles peels off to attack the remaining narcos as they stagger out of the wreck, and Spartacus continues after the Baron's ride. Interior Mercedes, the Baron is terrified.
We don't stop at the village. We go straight to the helicopter.
Something heavy rocks the car from above.
Was is los?
Crunch! Claws punch through the roof above the driver's head. Rip! The roof is pulled open like the lid of a sardine can. The driver loses control. The Mercedes slewing sideways and smash, coming to rest on its side in the trees. Baron von Drax climbs out of the totaled Mercedes over the dead body of the driver. He stands and turns. Spartacus towers over him, roaring.
Nein, nein, du bist mein Gein.
But Spartacus is not moved by this profession of kinship and impales von Drax with a thrust of his sickle claw. Sherman, one lens knocked out of his glasses and bleeding from the scalp, clumsily but hastily climbs a tree. Convoy, smashed and upended, vehicles litter the logging road, quiet now. Maya crawls out from under the trashed Humvee right into the legs of Joyce. Claw marks and blood on his chest, pistol in his hand, still a little stunned.
They didn't stop. No insulin, no adrenaline.
Willpower.
Joyce turns his attention to her and points his pistol.
They'll be back, you know.
Probably.
No reason to think they won't kill you too.
Reason.
He brings the pistol very close, aiming right between her eyes.
I'll save them the trouble.
Whomp! Nick flies out of nowhere, tackling Joyce, and blam! The pistol going off as they hit the ground. They roll, trading punches, struggling, and strangle each other. The pistol left on the ground. Joyce kicks Nick off of it, rolls to his knees, looks about. The halberd von Drax gave to Colonel lies on the ground just beside him. Joyce comes up with a halberd and swish, swish, swings it expertly, tauntingly at Nick, backing him up towards the trees.
I was wrong about you, Nick. I thought you were smart. I thought they baked all the ideals out of your skull at that POW camp.
Swish, he takes a mighty swing. Nick just able to duck under it. Maya pounces on the discarded pistol, aims, pulls the trigger, out of ammo. Joyce swings, slicing Nick across the shoulder, Nick backing up warily, bleeding.
How did you do it, Nick? How did you sabotage this?
They did it on their own. They watched and waited.
Joyce makes a rush and Nick falls backward over a root. He is helpless at Joyce's feet. Joyce with the halberd raised over his head with a woodsman about to chop.
They're animals, Nick. Throw them a bone, they'll do what you want.
He hears a metal sound as something behind him steps on a car debris, whirls, and thunk, buries a halberd blade into the armored chest of Achilles, tottering above him. Achilles roars, grabs the halberd shaft, and yanks it out of his armor. He drops it and lunges for Joyce. Nick scrambles away on his hands and knees as we hear Joyce screaming as he's torn to bits. Achilles drops Joyce's body to the ground and turns to step towards Nick.
Achilles, no! Stop.
Blood is pumping out of the wound in the raptor's neck. His eyes swimming in and out of focus, his blood sugar all used up. Turns to look at Maya, tilting his head, trying to understand. He takes another step, then falls like tall timber.
Nick!
Maya starts towards him, but is cut off by Casper, the spitter darting in front of her, hissing and displaying.
Don't move.
Spartacus and the others come out of the trees, ringing around them. Spartacus sniffs Maya's body and face, Maya standing absolutely still, looking at him in the eye. He steps away, rolls Achilles' body over with his foot, sniffs it, and then then straightens. He trumpets in triumph and trots off into the trees and the rest of the squad following. Maya runs to Nick, who's examining his bleeding shoulder.
Are you all right?
First time I've been wounded with a 15th century weapon. How far you think they'll get without insulin?
Maya looks into the jungle where the raptors disappeared.
Hard to say.
He puts his arm over her shoulder and they walk away from us, back down the logging road towards the village.
So where are the embryos? The real ones.
My deal was with John Hammond. What he does with them, well, let's hope it turns out better than the last time.
Sherman tree. Dusk is starting to fall. Birds call, insects hum. Sherman decides it might be all clear.
Anybody left down there? Hello?
No answer. There's a flapping sound. Shadow passing over Sherman. He looks up just as the dino bird lands in the tree opposite him.
Not supposed to be here.
Another one flaps down and settles into an even closer branch. Then another. All three stare at Sherman. He starts to cautiously climb down.
Right, I'll just be going now.
Squawk! The first one lets out a bone-chilling noise. Tiny rows of sharp teeth revealed as it opens its beak. Sherman freezes.
Listen, there's lots of bodies just lying around down there. Dead meat. Num, num, num.
The first one spreads its wings, opens the razor-toothed beak, and steps along the branch towards Sherman.
He's burning.
Aerial shot. Jungle canopy. High above the jungle canopy, we hear a human scream and the screech of the dino birds. Credits roll.
That was Jurassic-tacular? I don't know. It was weird.
Something.
It was something. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hope you had a great night.